Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm wrapping up the semester at my institution, and I was covering a standard talking about Charlemagne. Yeah, Charlemagne. Yeah, who is that? It means Charles the Great. And I was reminded again how these school books portray other cultures through the lens of power, empowerment, um, conquering through the lens of glorification. What do you mean? Well, this is what I mean. Charlemagne, if y'all can remember, um, was a king in Europe, early Europe, and some argue that Charlemagne was responsible for the whole the ideology of murdering and just ferocious conquering with an iron fist. Charlemagne, for those you don't know, was responsible for the caste, not the caste system, the feudal system. You know, where the king's at top, the queen and king, the king, excuse me, king and queen. The king is the land, and the land is the king. The king is God, and under the king, you have a group of nobles who Dr. John Henry Clark would call thugs. And the king, his woman, and his thugs run the land with the help of the police, also known as the knights, right? And then there's the rest of us. I would fit into this scenario as a serf, and there would be people beneath me called peasants. So, how did Charlemagne create this power structure of absolute domination? Well, he did it through murder. You don't do what I say, I'll fucking kill you. It got so bad that he started murdering clergy, members of the church. If they didn't talk about God how he wanted, he'd have them murdered. You have to keep in mind that clergy is part of the noble class, their nobility. They still are in the black community. You know this. I would look at Creflo Dollar as a noble with all those Bentleys and jets he'd be flying around in. All right. So the purpose of this space is to identify, given the fact that once again another European or Asian um, uh, figure in our school books are portrayed as powerful. So you see, power doesn't have to be good. Everybody wants power. Dr. Amos Wilson said you need power to survive. You need power to stand on your feet. Without power, you would collapse and fall dead. Right? Well, in the same breath of Charlemagne being portrayed as a very powerful leader, um, Dr. Martin Luther King is portrayed as a figure that will get you killed. According to Dr. Frances Quest Welsing, I'm paraphrasing her, I lost the page. She says she once asked one of her kids, "Don't you want to be a leader like Dr. King or Malcolm X?" Yeah, see, she was a child adolescent psychiatrist. She asked one of her little boys, "Don't you want to be a powerful leader like Dr. King or Malcolm X?" He said, "No." She said, "No? What you mean, no?" The little boy looked her dead in the eye and said, if I help my people like Dr. King or Malcolm X, I'm gonna get shot." Where did he learn that? He learned it from school books, right? The school books didn't tell him shit about Assata Shakur. Y'all see where I'm going with this? So, without further ado, do schools teach foundational Black American children powerlessness? What do you think about that, Wani?
Since you put it that way, I think they do. It's always the parents' job to um, vaccinate children from some of the rhetoric they may hear. You're supposed to tell them at home, that Columbus didn't discover America. I don't think they're saying anything stupid like that now. But they did say that when I was younger, and they say other things that are not right. And they're trying to, like I said before, the European creates reality. So if they say a gorilla doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. It doesn't matter if the Batois saw it. So I think they do um, try to, well, all of the things that they're doing make you feel um, like you have no power. If it's people seem to think that if it's in a book, that that's some sort of law. It's not. It's just a guy who wrote a book. Some books are good, some books are bad. Some books are by Afrocentric writers, some are by Eurocentric, and the truth lies between the two. So it again, it's up to the parent to let their children know what their beliefs are, not for them to rely on the teacher to give them self-esteem and teach them what the truth is.
Exactly. According to Dr. Frances Quest Welsing, she says in a social system designed to achieve white domination, the experience of that system molds Caucasian children so they may function in the role of the oppressors or the functional superiors, right? So the inverse of that is our children um, s- uh, get molded into functional subordinates. And like Wani said, it's our duty to teach our own children. Well, there's only one problem. And Wani, that's clear cut, straight, it's shooting from the hip. But Malcolm X said only what group of people would let the enemy teach their children? Well, there's a little problem with that. We are so caught up in the financial oppression that oftentimes we feel like there's no option but to send our children to public schools, you know? So that's where reparations kicks in. We need our money. The first thing we need to do when we get our reparations money, because it's not if, it's when. As our brother Tariq Nasheed said the other day, they're already starting to make hints at doing reparative justice for foundational Black Americans. Well, once we get our money, ladies and gentlemen, we need to form our own schools. Y'all fucking come get me. I'll design it. I'll do it my damn self. I got a team of scholars that can do that because I'm sick and tired of it. I just spent all day talking about Charlemagne, a goddamn a goddamn murderer.
That must have been painful.
Yeah, I'm not done. I got to go back over Charlemagne.
Mm. What?
Yeah, I got to go back and talk about how wonderful a murderer he was. Do what I say or I'll kill you. Do what I'll say or I'll kill you. And oh,
Well, that's how the Ottomans were. That's why Vlad Dracul had to take them out because they were like just bum rushing people. They would see a small little principality like where he was the prince of, and they would just go over there and terrorize those people so bad they just go, okay, this is your area now. I'll just be a little governor in there, just like who told Trudeau you can be the governor of Canada? Canada's going to be the 51st state. Then they
that's
started
funny
calling
as
them snow.
hell.
They started calling them snow Mexicans. That was
That shit's funny as hell. I'm sorry. That's funny.
uh,
Trump said you can be the 54th first state. Man, Trump is like Teflon Don. Anyway, um back to the subject at hand. This is kind of drastic, ladies and gentlemen, because you got a lot of foundational Black American children who really, like me, that my only way out was them school books. That's all I had. So you have to kind of inculcate the material when you're dealing with the hell I grew up with as a child. And, you got to just believe it to get through to get the best grade. And it becomes a part of you. And you become thinking, you get molded as Dr. Amos Wilson said, you get inculcated into believing, well, I guess I'm powerless. There was a time and place where I thought that. I'm a pretty strong person. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing says, quote, we must stress the use of the term functional inferiority. Woo! Let me say that shit one more time. Functional inferiority, which is contrast to genetic inferiority. Functional is used because the genetic material of non-white children is not impaired, but predetermined and established racist social experiences designed deliberately to destroy the genetic potential of social functioning. What would that mean? Dr. Welsing is saying that no offense, but from a scientific standpoint, we are designed to be in a dominant role. You remember the other day I was talking about psyche, the mind, the soul. According to science, we're in a dominant leadership role. So the only way you dominate somebody who was meant to be a leader is you get in that psyche, you get in that mind, you get in that soul. Let me say that shit again. You get that mind, you get that soul. You think they different? There's ancient texts that will argue with you on that. All is mind. I'm gonna leave that alone before I end up disappearing. I'm not supposed to talk about that. What do you think about that, Kanye?
Uh, I mean, it's pretty evident when you read the Willie Lynch letter. It literally says that keep the mind weak but the body strong. So it tells you the first way how to subjugate people. You can only do that if they buy into the nonsense you're selling. Like, and it's a very powerful thing. You got people who stop themselves. They put limits on themselves, and until they can break those limits, they are whoever the person said it is. I know you heard about the thing where like they put a dog on a chain, and then if they remove the chain, the dog won't go past the mark.
Yes, sir. They did it. They did it with elephants, and it's the saddest shit ever. They have a baby elephant and put a 100-pound iron on his foot, and you take it off when he's an adolescent, and he still limps around like it's an iron on his foot. That's a great analogy, Kanye. That's really what happened to us. Oops, shit. That's what happened to me, and I'm a stronger. I'm a pretty strong person. All the shit I've been through and going through, is no way I should be standing. I'm pretty strong, but I was damaged in school growing up in Alabama in the system I came up in with that weight that Kanye's talking about. I was, taught as a child that um, to act as a functional inferior, not genetic inferior, a functional inferior. Go ahead and land, Kanye.
Oh no, I was just gonna add that's the same thing Tariq was talking about last night with the Major spirit and everything. Um, to overcome that though, it's rare. I mean, like you said, I mean, it's crazy. Like it's kind of has nothing to do with the title, but like you were saying, like how most people in academia are trained to think and believe a certain way. Not many of them do what you did and broke out of that cycle to teach the actual truth.
Yeah.
Right. So that in itself shows tremendous will on your end. But just to answer the question to the title, I mean, do teachers schools teach FBA children powerless? Of course they do. They teach them to be docile. That's the whole thing. So reason why they elevated MLK over Malcolm X. You
Hello.
can't have people. You can't
Wake it
have
up.
people saying by yeah. You can't have people saying by any means necessary. And even Malcolm X in the time said when those people say be nonviolent, they mean defenseless. And Malcolm X specified that. I'm not encouraging people to go out and fight people. I'm just telling you if a man put his hands on him to the grave. And that's how it should be. Any living thing, be that single cell organism or whatever, its first thing is self preservation. So a fool, but even a dog will protect itself against you. So the idea to be docile and let people harm you is ridiculous. So
It's insane, and I want to add something before we go to Lisa. Uh, what Kanye just said, man. You looking at a psychological operation. You're looking at MI6. Those of you don't know what MI6 is, that's that James Bond shit. That's the most. That's that spy, that counterintelligence infiltration. What are you talking about? This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about our dear brother Dick Gregory said. Well, first and foremost, we have to look at where Dr. King got that ideology of nonviolence. He got it while studying in school. Here we go again. Do schools teach the FBA children powerlessness? Kanye, was Dr. King taught powerlessness? And I love my brother.
of course he was given an example,
Yep.
right? It's funny thing about it is right. They'll give you these one in a lifetime examples and tell you to chase that. When history itself, the fight for freedom has always been bloody. It's interesting. Ronald Reagan gave his speech. He was talking about the Cold War. He was talking about Nikita Khrushchev. When he said Nikita Khrushchev told his people that when it comes to deliver the final blow, our surrender will be voluntary. He said those voices don't speak for us because those of us who believe that the price of freedom should not be purchased, the price of change is slavery. He was talking about the history. He even said, "Honor dead who gave their lives to stop the Nazis." That was a bloody war. So they understood that the march to freedom is always paid in violence. You don't get it by being docile. That's not what happens. So when you give the two examples of Gandhi and MLK for nonviolence, and you say that changed the heart, it really didn't change it. The only reason why they switched over in India is because they couldn't control the people that much, and they wanted to have, like you said, the MI6 thing. They wanted to have an example of somebody who did it. Then you got Dr. King who did it here in America just to keep black
Hold on.
people docile.
Let's unpack that. Kanye, I'm gonna let you land. But let's unpack that because a lot of people in this room don't know what we're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna say Dr. Dick Gregory. Our brother Dick Gregory. had a space, a session where he proved that um, Gandhi was MI6. Gandhi, who was a brown racist, went to Cambridge University. He was a Cambridge trained attorney. And at Cambridge, he was imbued with this ideology of nonviolence. The question is why? Why? Because the British wanted India, but the British had numerical inferiority. It's very few British, very few Europeans actually compared to everybody else. So their guns and knives didn't matter when you had a numerical majority in India. So how do you defeat a numerical majority in India? You teach them that violence is not okay under any circumstances. It's not okay. Now, I'm a nonviolent type of cat, but I used to teach physics. That's one of my favorite classes to teach. And hell, depending on how things go, I might go back to physics because history is wearing me the fuck out with all the lies and cap. But anyway, back to the subject at hand. In physics, under Newtonian physics, we know that for every action, there's an opposite equal reaction. So if somebody comes at you with violence, the laws of the universe, logic, physics, which is two in the same, dictate that you come back at them. That's just the way it is. You see it in nature. When you hit a little kitty cat, that motherfucker it hits you right back. That's just the way it is. And again, a group of people who are unnatural in their behavior. Let's leave it right there. Maybe unnatural in another way. We're not gonna wake that up yet, have taught vis-a-vis by proxy through a brown racist named Gandhi, a whole group of people how to be nonviolent under any circumstance, which is not natural. And fast forward 40 years, 50 years, Dr. King, while he was in school, although very brilliant, gullible, kind, humble, country, according to Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory called him country. I'm country, so I can say that. Uh, Dr. King said, damn, that's a good idea. He probably didn't say damn, but he said, that's a good idea. And he spread that ideology to us without knowing that it was MI6. By the time Dr. King figured out the debacle, he was assassinated. Go ahead and land your plane, Kanye.
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad you took the time to elaborate on that. Um, it's really crazy. I just want to add this to that part of Dr. King's situation. Um, and it's important. Malcolm X called this out. He pointed out that MLK was being funded. He was getting paid $300,000 for certain engagements. And Malcolm X said it then. He said, that's not activism, that's employment. And I do think
Wow.
that kind of, that literally, and $300,000 back then was a
That
hell
was
of a
a
lot of
lot of
money.
money.
A lot of money, right? And it's like, and he was pointing out the people that were getting paid. And I do think it's very interesting that if you really believe in a cause, you don't need your pockets greased. And I think that he actually believed in it. And I think he just thinking, oh, it's incentivized to help my people. But look at what happened toward the end of his life when he woke the hell up. He said he integrated my people into a burning house. And I think that's the part that they'll never teach you in school. They won't teach you what he said about boycotting Pepsi and Wonder Bread. He
Because
said we
that's
coming to
power.
there
Kanye,
you
because
go.
that's power. That's power.
Yep.
Just knowing that's power. Stand
See,
up for what you believe in.
and the crazy thing about it is they talk about Bloody Sunday and they said they'll teach you in school. I remember they taught us in school this that it was like, oh, when the people in the north and all over the country started seeing people get hit across the head, it made them change their minds and maybe it was going too far. But if you look at
I.e., they felt sorry for
yeah,
us.
but
Powerlessness.
that's not what happened.
Go ahead.
That's not what happened at all. Because if you took at the poll of the country, half the country hated MLK, North and the South. And when you look at who was going to those lynchings and those beating him up, those were the quote unquote good town folk. Them wasn't the people with no teeth. These are people with the good paying jobs, smiling, showing all 32 teeth, tar niggas at the stake. So it wasn't that. This was a situation where they looked to secure the Democratic vote for the next, what do you say, 60 years? Yeah, niggas voting Democrat for the next 60 years for signing that bill. And then
Wake it up.
also there was an economic incentive to that. They knew that if, like Professor Allen talked about, if niggas was able to spend their money with these Europeans, they would rush to do it. And that's exactly what they did. So this is an economic thing. And also, the other side of that coin was if we don't make it seem like Martin Luther King's nonviolence changed us, people gonna turn to the Malcolm X side because Elijah Muhammad was saying make your own neighborhood a good place to live. Malcolm X is saying any means necessary. And they'll never teach you. They'll never teach you about Khalid Muhammad. They only teach you about Minister Farrakhan. They won't teach you about Assad Shakur. You want to learn about Huey P. Newton. You want to know about Bobby Seale. You want to know about Fran Hampton. They don't teach people.
They
And
not
these are
teaching
local
power.
heroes.
They not
Yeah, they'll
teaching
never teach
power.
you that.
Well, going back, and there's so much to unpack. I love it. Going back to one thing that Kanye said, he said so much. Wow. Um, he said basically, um, what we learned is integration was disintegration. Again, history will erase the mystery. Why did my dear brother, I love him too, Thurgood Marshall, push for integration? You gotta, guys, you gotta look. History is critical. You gotta look. Everything has a history. I was talking about that today in lecture. But if you look at the core, the origin of Thurgood Marshall, and you'll find out Thurgood Marshall went to Lincoln University, and Lincoln University had a 100% white faculty of professors from Harvard, Yale, and Columbia, Ivy League PhDs, who Thurgood Marshall absolutely adored. And a movement happened at Lincoln that was common sense. The common sense was we're a black school, we need black professors. Duh. And guess who was the main one fighting the black professors and fighting to keep the white professors? Thurgood Marshall. What am I telling you? You have some origin right there. You have Thurgood Marshall being taught, and I love Thurgood, believing in the powerlessness. He was taught that, white ice is colder, white sugar is sweeter, you know? And that ideology, although he meant well, trickled down to the worst thing, according to my dear Aunt June, that ever happened to the black community, which was integration. Attorney Automatic said integration was disintegration. Dr. Claude Anderson says you don't make a cup of black coffee stronger by pouring milk in it. And in conclusion, before we go to Jackson, I grew up with my Aunt June, one of the first black nurse, probably the first black nurse practitioner in Alabama. She was a nurse practitioner before they called it that. They didn't even have a word for it. Um, she drive me around her jet black Benz, black on black E class, to cheer me up on the weekends. And she would always roll me back through the hood, because there was some badass food there. It's always some delicious ass food in the hood, but that's a whole nother space. We go get some barbecue or some, Nicky's West, whatever. And while we were eating on our food, she would park in the projects. Number one, she wanted me to see her give the have-nots a little money and fellowship with the have-nots because we're two in the same. She's saying I'm a nurse, a high nurse that works at the CDC with an executive position, but I'm not better than you. And she would point up Center Street. You see, Birmingham is one of the only cities in America to have a true black upper middle class. There are reasons for that. In short, the reason is the steel mill was in Birmingham before Pennsylvania stole it. Pennsylvania Steelers, they're making a joke with that. They stole the steel industry, but that's a whole nother space. And black slaves were allowed to work in the steel mill. After emancipation, you had black people that had their own money. People don't know that. The Pennsylvania Steelers, they're trying to be funny with that. Well, it is kind of funny when you know the history. But anyway, so you had groups of black people and groups of poor whites from the Georgia Corporation starting out on equal footing. So you had elite black neighborhoods, which is why they blew up my church in 16th Street back in the 50s. I mean, 60s, I'm sorry. Well, back to the point at hand, my Aunt June would park at the bottom. The neighborhood's divided by Center Street. It's a street called Center Street that goes right through the middle of the neighborhood. And it goes up an incline up the hill. So we're from the bottom of Center Street where the po folks reside, a block away from the projects. And June would park right there in front of the projects and point up that hill and say integration fucked us up. I say, why, June? She said, because before integration, we all had to live in the same neighborhood. And every day we was walking to school, we could look up Center Street at Angela Davis's house. We could look up Center Street at Helen the Shore Lee, the Shore Arthur Shores Lee. He's a black attorney. The attorney's house. You can look up the street, the black medical doctor's house. Look up the street at the bottom of the hill and see the principal and the school teacher. We were all in this shit together. And she said that created a choice. I said, how so, June? She said, well, on our side of the street, you had hookers and junkies. And that's okay. We're not judging them. You could be, if you want to be a hooker, you be the best hooker. You want to be a pimp, You be the best pimp you can be. But having the haves in the neighborhood created a choice for children. They could look every fucking day on their way to school. They could say, I could be a junkie, I can be a pimp, I can be a hoe, or I can be an attorney, I can be a businessman. She said when integration happened, everybody who had a little bit of something left the black neighborhood. And that was a double whammy. Why? Because it left people like us to fend for ourselves. And the rich, the haves, the fancy lawyers and the fancy principals and shit took their children over to the white school systems where those educators fucked their head up royally. I mean, you know how many children of doctors and lawyers I know who turn to gangbangers? Don't ask me how I know. Go ahead, Lisa Jackson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I like the space. This is great. What I want to say is that something that the young man was saying about Martin, he tamped down on Martin, but remember when Martin got damn near severed, it was Malcolm that had to come up and tell Martin's people, the people that hung out with Martin, that listen, this is, who told you that your hair was this way? Who told you this? When Malcolm stood up there and said that shit, I don't care what nobody say, I think a mindset changed. And at the end of the day, you know what? I love the Black Panthers and everything, but you know something, we can't always go into groups, see, because remember, they told us that we can't be grouped on side of the street. So, us going into groups was not always a good thing. You go into a group, but you do go into it silently. You don't go into it as one. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is that what these men did was remarkable. When Martin damn near got his head severed off, or what that woman did to him, because what her plight was, which they will never tell us, her plight was like, what you doing is, I'm a businesswoman. So what you're doing is you're saying integrate. So that's going to hurt my business. So that's why that woman did what she did. A lot of people don't want to recognize it, don't want to understand it.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, she severed him because when he started doing that integration garbage, what I call is garbage,
It was.
when we were flourishing at one time as a whole community, even though we were still under the gun, even though they were still stepping on our necks, we still had our own communities. What happened was is when he went to the White House, and I don't know, I think it was Johnson, somebody, but what I do remember is when that woman tried to take off his head, I always want to know why. Nobody told us why this woman. They try to say she was a lover. No, she was a business owner in a black community. And she was like, oh, hell no. What you doing is wrong. What you doing is wrong. That's what she came at him for. What you're doing is wrong. But they will never tell us that. They're never going to tell us that. But at least when that happened to him, Malcolm stood up for him at that church and told black people the truth.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't even say that's why his ass in the hospital.
Martin, that's wonderful, Lisa. Thanks for sharing that. But let me tell y'all something a lot of people don't know about Dr. King. They followed Dr. King since he was a baby. Dr. King was from I'm gonna say elite within the
Divine Nine. Just call it for what it is.
well, no, I'm not necessarily talking about that, and I don't really. That term is kind of a misnomer because all organizations are not the same. But that's a whole nother space. I'm not talking about Divine Nine. I'm talking about his daddy was a pastor. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So what I'm saying is, Dr. King had the expectation. He was from a family where it was expected of him. He was a typical, really, actually, a typical Morehouse man. It's expected of them to do something great for the black community. And that's not really always a good thing when you're doing it just to do it. Now, that was a good analogy. Um, Malcolm X did great things for the black community because he wanted to help it. I mean, I'd say Malcolm X had it the right way. Malcolm X tried the street life, saw that shit was fucked up, got a second chance, and said, you know what, I'm gonna lead other people to the right way of life. Dr. King, being a typical Morehouse man, was put into a position of being great just because that's what Morehouse men do. And that can be a dangerous thing for our community, because you get a lot of brothers and sisters from Spelman and Hampton and the like who become attorneys and doctors just to kind of like a look at meism. I'm an attorney. I'm an educator. I'm a professor. Who gives a fuck what you doing for the neighborhood? Well, anyway, what I was saying about that is Dr. King was very naive. Dr. King was not a bad person. Dr. King
No,
got involved with an organization, and it wasn't a divine, wasn't that. It was something else I'm not going to talk about on this space. But he got involved with a couple of with the
I know who you're talking about, but at the end of his life, he said what? I think I put my people in what?
a
He
burning
said it
house.
himself. A burning house. Right. So remember, what I'm saying, all I'm simply saying is that when this happened to him, they said that he went out of exhaustion or whatever. No, no, that's not what happened. That lady tried to take his head off. Then Malcolm stood in on the real for him. You know what I'm saying? He went down there. Nobody liked Malcolm. Nobody himself, nobody wanted to hear that. But when Malcolm started telling about their hair, who you think you are, who do you know what I'm saying? That's when Malcolm became prevalent in the South. Because remember, it was the North and the South between the both of them. Now, at the end of the day, because there was a love between both of them, there was some sort of something. Malcolm stepped in when Martin had to go to the hospital. They always say he went to the hospital for exhaustion. No, he didn't. He went for getting that stab ass on his ass.
What
That's what he
what
went to the hospital.
well, this is all true, but I don't want to lose context. Malcolm was still, I mean, Martin was still in what I like to call drone mode. He was in the mode of, I'm gonna save the black community. I'm a Morehouse man. I'm supposed to do this. Martin had a wake up call, and
Mm-hmm.
it cost him his life. You know, by, like you said, saying, "Did I leave my people in a burning house?" People forget how young Dr. King was. He was young. What was he in?
Yes, he was only 30 something years
Yeah,
old.
when he got
33, I
killed.
think
So
it was.
how old was he when he was walking through
Yeah,
them streets? He was
33.
very young. Him and Coretta both. I pity them because they both were almost kind of perfect, just young.
It's
Yeah,
heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. But to know that two icons had the pity back off of two icons, that was the beauty of them both. That's my point. Like, King did not get everything. He was naive. Naive does not mean stupid or as stupid does. Naive just means I just didn't know.
yeah, he was
What,
young. Lisa, we
yes,
gonna come back. We gonna come back to you. Let's see what Roger. What's on your mind, my brother Ward?
Professor Allen, how you doing, man?
What up?
Hey Wanda, hey Nikki. Peace to everybody in the room. To answer the question to the room, do schools teach FBA children powerlessness? 100%. Because I was also in education, and I was at this school out here in Arizona. I won't name the school, but two instances why I think this is true. So there was this one day, like we had like a teacher dress up, uh, kind of thing, like for the students. So like the students would dress up as their favorite teacher or whatever. There's this one FBA kid, and the school already had like a 10% FBA population. So this one FBA young boy, I think he was in third grade, he dressed up as his teacher, and she was a white liberal. Nothing against white liberals. So he had on like a dress, like a little tutu, like a little head garment. So I just feel a responsibility, you know, a responsibility as an FBA man to like put my young FBAs like up on game. So I pulled them to the side, you know what I'm saying, because they was walking to recess one day, and I just pulled them to the side. I was like, "Hey man, I understand, you know what I'm saying, like you might look up to your teacher and stuff like that. No problem with that, but try not to wear the dress though. You know what I'm saying? Like take the dress off. Like try not to do that." So he was like, "Why not, Mr. Ward?" And I was like, "Cuz man, it's just not a good look. Like being a young black man, the optics of you wearing a dress, it's just not cool. We can have a deeper conversation about it, but just understand, you know what I'm saying? Like don't let nobody take your masculinity away from you." So he was like, "Oh, okay, cool." But the next day, his teacher emailed me and was like, "Oh, he can be who he want to be. It's not your place to try to tell him blah blah blah." So I called a personal meeting with her, and I was like, "Look, I understand you might feel some type of way, but you know what I'm saying, as a duty, like I have a responsibility to tell this young man that the optics of him wearing a dress is not okay. You know what I'm saying? And you have no right to try to tell me what I can tell people of my lineage. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna protect my group before anything." And then there was another situation where, because I'm a solution that had I'm sorry, that was enrolled in the school, they had a reading uh their reading numbers were like way below standard, at least 50% of that 10%. So I started my own book club specifically for the FBAs that had reading issues. And like we would go over like the etymology of words, like the fundamentals of reading, stuff like that. I mean, of course, I couldn't come right out and say that it was specifically for FBAs, but I handpicked every single last one of them, called their parents, and just like kept them in the loop about, you know what I'm saying, like my book club and like what I was going to do with it and stuff like that. And at the end of the year, because we always get numbers at the end of the year, and I'm pretty sure Professor Allen, like you know, in those meetings, they always talk around the problem. They never want to address what's specifically going on with a specific group. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I took all the FBAs that was having struggles with reading, and I believe their numbers were way below average. At the end of the year of Professor Allen and everybody to the room, uh, we had grown that number at least 20% of what it was prior to where it was before. So I definitely think that they teach powerlessness in the schools, you know what I'm saying? Because I saw it like all the time when I was teaching. But again, you know what I'm saying, as an FBA man, I always took pride in, you know, like putting the FBAs up on game, giving them, you know, just whatever I could give them. So, yeah.
Yeah, Roger, and you just being a black man up in there, that has power in itself. They didn't want you there, but I love it, Roger, and I want you, even if you leave the educational field, as I may, keep a hand into it. If you become an entrepreneur, keep those programs running, and get with me in the back channels, man. Maybe we could develop something for our children, particularly our young men, like a Saturday school. But I just love the fact that you said you took responsibility for these young men. That's what I do. It's something I try to do. It just happens. If I feel a deep responsibility for them. Have a young man that, it's real sad. Dr. Welsing says, um uh a child who could be a genius based on the genetic endowment, that means us, can be turned into a criminal who must spend his productive years locked behind the bars of a prison cell. I've had a young man, a little chalk smooth little brother that didn't have a dad around, and he just, he's in this environment he thought was shit. My only way out is to be, is to, what I'm saying, wear a face mask, and he's talking the ideology of, like robbing and shit. And I made the little cat know that he's smart and know that he is somebody. Only a man can do that to him. No offense, ladies, we can't raise a girl. You know what I'm saying? We can't. We can pamper a little girl, but we can't teach her how to be a woman. But a man can teach a man how to be a man. You know what I'm saying? That shit is very important. And I come from a generation of the 80s. I was born in the 80s, but grew up in the 90s, particularly the late 90s. And I was real fortunate, even though my dad couldn't be around. He got in a little trouble. Um, I had uncles and stuff. What a lot of people don't see is the system has eradicated black men from out of our presence. They just non-existent. That's a whole nother space, whole nother place. Dr. Welsing says inferioralization deliberately turns a black child. Let me say that shit one more time. Inferioralization deliberately turns a black child who could become a brilliant universal statesman, a strong supporting father, and a loving, caring protector of his wife into a drug addict. It turns a black female child who could become a physician, scientist, and excellent mother into a prostitute. It turns a black parents who could be mature, supporting, loving, and kind of their offspring into immature child batterers and sexual abusers of their own children. That's what my Aunt June was showing me when I was a child. She was showing me that examples are important, and I would later learn that in grad school. Black Truth, what's on your mind?
Hey, salute to the room. Salute, brother professor, sister Nikki,
Please
sister
speak
Wani.
Black Truth.
Hello.
Unmute yourself. You're not muted.
Oh,
Could,
Nikki, you can't hear him,
could
Nikki?
everyone hear me?
I hear you. Nikki, you can't hear him?
Is he
Let me
speaking for
drop
you?
down.
Yeah,
Oh,
he.
Oh,
I'll
I can
drop
hear him
down.
Speaking.
now. I can
Give me
hear him
one
now.
Oh
second.
yeah, he can hear you. Go ahead, Black Truth. She can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Got it. Perfect. Alrighty. So, do schools teach FBA children powerlessness? Most definitely. I remember in school, especially with required reading books, every single thing was extra depressing. As I mean,
Yeah.
definitely parents need to look out for what your children are reading. Everything, especially in the higher level classes like AP classes. Into the Wild, you have a guy essentially giving up on life, running into the woods in Alaska, essentially committing suicide. You have The Awakening, feminist ideology. She determines that she wants to give up on her marriage, and then she kills herself by walking into the water. I mean, all
What?
these
I think I
depressing
saw
ass books.
reading.
That's a
Uh huh.
mess. Oh, it's a mess,
Hor-
Wani. Yes. Yes.
Horrible.
Yeah.
That
Uh
that
huh.
sta- that started.
Like,
That Black
go
Truth.
ahead.
I'm gonna let you land, but I just want to kind of piggyback off what you said. That kind of started when I was in high school. He's right. The shift. There's been a shift in literature to teach kids, and I think it's intentional to teach them inferioralization.
Professor,
Hey,
Professor, maybe it's our age because I don't remember nobody teaching that crap.
I feel like it started with me. We
Oh
start reading that
goodness.
shit. Yeah, like the
Yeah.
depressing, like, but there's an agenda to it. Like, let me give you a good example of agenda, and I'm gonna let Black Truth land his plane. Do y'all remember? Ooh, I got a good one for y'all. Y'all remember To Kill a Mockingbird?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
To Kill a Mockingbird is fucking poisonous. Let's look at it from a logical standpoint. Let's look at meta narrative framing. Let's look at the core learning model of Kill a Mockingbird. Beautiful story, but when you boil To Kill a Mockingbird down, what's the message? Black man, you are in trouble. Black man, you are inferior. Black man, if you ever get in trouble, seek a white man to get you out of trouble. This is meta narrative framing, guys. This shit is deep. It's programming. It's brainwash. Go ahead and land your plane, Black Truth.
Yeah, just wanted to say there are plenty of other examples too. There's another one you all may want to look out for called the Kite Runner. Don't even let your children read that. It's absolutely disgusting. A, a young boy gets raped. I mean, it's or
Wow.
essayed. I'm sorry,
What?
essayed. I mean, it's just absolutely disgusting. All these things are extra depressing, and they teach you like the title of the room, a level of powerlessness because a lot of things happen throughout the entire book and all of these different books, and at the end of the day hardly anything changes. So it's like teaching people, hey, no matter what you do, you can't escape your fate essentially. So yeah, definitely it's definitely deep, and they have chosen these books specifically to attack the minds of people.
Absolutely,
Okay.
and that's so beautiful. Black Truth, that ties into what we were talking about earlier with Brother Kanye about Gandhi and that nonviolent shit, that nonsense. man, we can get deep on this one. They're training you out of nature. So the universe ain't stupid. The universe created you. The universe created, I mean, how do I even frame this? The Kemites, which known as the Egyptians, created buildings so perfect that they still stand. And if you dig deep in the literature, the Kemites worshiped the Netaru, which allegedly the Catholic Church stole and turned into the saints, right? The Netaru, which were the angels, were if you boil down that word Netor, that's nature. So the Kemites studied Mother Nature to learn what they knew. That nature is brilliant, nature is smart, and nature will hide things from you, right? Nature will hide the power of the atom from you. Nature's like a woman almost. But my point of bringing that up is the ideology that they're teaching in these schools is anti-nature. It's against your nature. Your nature is of power. They're teaching you powerlessness. They're meta narratively framing you to believe that you are our children, rather, our children, that you might as well submit. Fuck, even in the school system, teachers are trained. I used to be a professor in school education. I made teachers, for Christ's sake. When you're writing your standard on the board, you put swabot. Student will be able to, student will. That's some obey ass shit, man. You're brainwashing. And the sad part about it is a lot of the practitioners and professionals are not aware, just like Dr. King was not aware, that they're part of the problem. They're what's the word? Unwitting agents, unwitting assets. Yeah, this rabbit hole goes deep, ladies and gentlemen. Black Truth, did you land your plane?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. I'll go ahead and drop down. Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother.
Have a good one.
Yes, sir. Doctor, Your Highness.
Peace, everyone. Peace, my beautiful family. Hope everyone is like staying warm and cozy. I don't know, like where y'all at, but in the
Well,
Midwest, it's cold.
that's what I heard now.
Atlanta
Ooh,
cold too.
cold.
It's freezing out here. It is freezing. I opened up the door to go get something, closed it right back.
Girl, I'm gonna have to put some on my window. But okay, so I wanted to bring this up before the response to the initial question. So my granny mom, she's 96 years old. Okay, she's from um what's the name of this town? It's in Alabama, Mobile. My grandma
Okay.
and my grandfather, they from Mobile, Alabama. And when I used to talk to her, and I still talk to her, sometimes her little memory be, but her recollection of the civil rights movement is like she don't the way they taught us to look at it is not how she experienced it. Like her reason for leaving was not because of like civil rights. Like from her perspective, she didn't really see racism like that, like where she was from. Like, yeah, it was racism, right? But it wasn't the way they portrayed it on TV. You know what I'm saying? Like, and not only that, we knew, or she knew, those places not to go. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, okay, you just don't go over there. You don't, go over there. We got our own restaurants, we got our own community, and I feel like they had their own little community. And what really, from my grandmother's perspective, what pushed her to come to the Midwest was not the civil rights movement. It was her not being able to. First of all, she went to school, right? She always tell me how she went to teachers college, right? So she went to teachers college and she finished 2 years. They end up telling her like, we can't pay for your stuff no more. So they just totally just cut her off. I guess it was some program that was allowing her to go. She go to the program, and then out of nowhere, no more money. So then she end up leaving for, to try to get a better job for her children, because it was economically, they were being economically starved. And this also kind of play into the whole industrialization and stuff like that. And so I don't know, I'm just saying, like, the way she recollects the civil rights movement is not how they teach us. You know what I'm saying? Like, she didn't look at it as if like she left because it was all this racism. She looked at it like man, they starving us. They not giving us no good jobs. I need better financial, stability. And then that's how she ended up in Detroit. And then she came to Chicago. Now, do schools teach FBA children powerlessness? I wanted to ask you, Professor, what is your thoughts on this? So I noticed that Black kids in the school system, they are very, like, first of all, they're the school system, they are too hard on our Black kids. I noticed that. But I noticed that a lot of Black children have a hard time expressing themselves. What do
Right.
you like? Why do you think that is? Because, like, when I see white kids, when I see them, they're very expressive. Like, oh my gosh, they want everybody to hear them and see them. But Black children, it's like, what is it that's going on in the school system that makes them not want to express themselves, not even talk?
They're they're being made to feel inferior, so they just shut down.
Bingo. Bingo. And it's reinforced. Wani hit it on the head. And it's reinforced with a multi fucking $1 billion system. What do you mean? This is what I mean. That's a good question, by the way. Um, all right. Across the country, strategically, starting, I think, in the 70s, so I hear, um, vocational education was taken out. So Black children, like you said, are expressive. And that is so much. This is so jam packed full of jewels. I don't even know where to begin. Oh man. Any part of education that deals with. Hold on, we gonna go there. If we gonna go there, let's just fucking go there. I'm going all the way there. Stand by 1 minute. We gonna go to we gonna cook up some Maslow's hierarchy of needs with this one, my friend. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a diagram. Of course, a European named it after himself, but um, that shows what human beings need for basic success. I'm looking for it right quick. My phone, I'll find it in 1 second. Won't have to download it again. There it is. Bam. I'll put two things in here. They look different, but they're related. Okay. So if you look at Infiltration, you'll see Maslow's hierarchy. If I can find it where it went.
Are you driving?
Oh. No, I'm actually sitting down, but it's interesting. They didn't let me
What?
put it in. Oh, there it is. I thought they're kind of fucking with
No,
space
you
for a
broke
minute. I
up a
found it.
bit, so I thought you might be.
That's because Professor is cooking up some stuff on the grill tonight. They don't want him to do it. Keep on going. Don't let it stop you. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah, Wanda. They definitely fucking with me. I got 3 bars. I'm laying on the bed. Got full bars, so they fucking with the space. And if it go down, it'll be right back up. So can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
okay,
Yes, sir.
so let's look at the jumbotron. To answer your question, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, this is a diagram that shows what beings need to reach self actualization. Self actualization is that point in life you see with Caucasian. Well, you used to see with Caucasian children, but they're in trouble now. Where they don't need, if you go around rich neighborhoods around rich white kids, they don't really need fancy clothes. Matter of fact, they'll brag on having thrift store clothes, and they're just happy being alive. But how do you get there to self actualization, which means morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance, experience, purpose, meaning, and inner potential, like just Zen? How do you get there? Well, you got to start at the bottom. Starting at the bottom, now we're here, right? Breathing, you need air, you need food, you need water. Stop. Guess what? Foundational Black Americans across the country don't even make it to fucking number 2. We don't get good nutrition. We don't get good water. Do we have shelter? Do we own homes? Do we own neighborhoods? No, we're moved around in apartments. Clothing, I think we got that covered for the most part. Sleep, do we get good sleep? Or are our neighborhoods being fucking shot up like when I was a child trying to study, and the Crips and Bloods and Vice Lords fucking shooting the neighborhood, not Vice Lord folk. What do you call that? In IGD. All right. but if you nail number one, physiological needs, you can move on to number two, safety and security. Need I say anything more? We don't have safety and security. You need safety and security to make it to love and belonging. You see how this goes? Love and belonging makes it to self-esteem. Self-esteem is, like Wani was saying, is where we our children lack. Been there, done that, still there. Our self-esteem is systematically destroyed. Now, to answer your question, why don't our kid? What's wrong going on with our kids in the school system? We need those outlets for expression, and this is critical. We need those outlet classes for expression because we don't have our physiological and safety and security needs. Those outlet classes like scene shot, where you're actually making something. Making stuff is therapeutic. Theater arts, where you're like acting and screaming and yelling, that's therapeutic. Music is therapeutic and mathematical. Those programs are being canceled. Those programs are directly linked to academic achievement for foundational Black American children because it provides a substitute for Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not happy at home. I'm scared I'm gonna get shot up at home. My mama's verbally abusing me. My daddy's not there. Everybody in my neighborhood is a fucking junkie. But I can go to Mr. Thompson's class of theater arts and just scream and cry on that stage. And you know what? I feel healed. Got it? They taking those fucking classes out. Now they say it's for lack of funding, but that's bullshit. Because if it was lack of funding, why the fuck do you have a football team? And why the fuck are you paying your football coach $100,000 a year at a school in the goddamn ghetto? This is systematic, ladies and gentlemen. If you look on the other diagram, you have a system that was directly developed to destroy the foundational Black American family by one B.F. motherfucking Skinner, PhD. May he burn in hell. B.F. Skinner was consulted in trying to find a way to, again, turn Mother Nature's creations against their nature. Best way to destroy a human is to start with another organism like a rat. And a B.F. Skinner, or see, in nature, according to Dr. Shahrazad Ali, rats will share. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know if a rat in nature, if they have extra food and when a rat is starving, they will actually give them some of their food?
I've heard that
Rats,
recently.
yeah, Dr. Shahrazad Ali, all over that shit. It's true.
Yeah, but
Also,
they'll also eat each other too. I've seen that.
when, well, in certain circumstances, which is the point. Um, also a female rat had got plenty of sense. She will not have sex with a male rat until he does a couple things. Number one, she got to check him over to make sure he doesn't have diabetes or he's okay genetically. And number two, that male rat got to provide for her. He got to make her a house, a burrow. Once he makes a burrow, she'll let him get him some. You know what I'm saying? So B.F. Skinner took this ideology and created the projects. Yeah, I said it. The projects, Cabrini Green in Chicago, and I keep forgetting the one in Atlanta. The one in Atlanta was actually the first project before Cabrini Green, but Cabrini Green's more popular. But the two prototypical projects were developed after B.F. Skinner's research. What am I saying, ladies and gentlemen? We're dealing with a warfare machine that was designed to turn us against our nature and turn us against each other that is functioning like a motherfucker. Do our females pick men that provide? Not necessarily, and it's not necessarily our females' problem because the system makes sure that men don't are not able to provide. Why? Because it denies them Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Because they don't go to school to learn; they go to school to survive. You know what I'm saying? You don't have the self actualization. But on the flip side, on the other side of the railroad tracks, they're coming out of school with self actualization. They're so happy and peaceful; they can figure out ways to make money. We're stuck at stuck at number one, physiological needs, trying to eat. And that gets us caught up in shit. That gets us caught up in shit, and we get stuck at the bottom. And now we're here. It's such a goddamn conspiracy that's functioning right in front of our faces that people will not empower, will not acknowledge. Hopefully, I've answered your question.
Yeah, I just also wanted to add, I can definitely attest to growing up and like even though we were in the hood, we had access to like expressing ourselves, whether it was dancing, we had different, places where we could go. Like we had basketball teams, all kinds of
Right.
art and theater. And I'm talking about we living in the hood. This the crack epidemic. This is the crack epidemic. I'm talking about living is looking like that. But we had places to go to express ourselves. And our children, this generation, they're not it's almost like that is being gate kept. Like self-expression is something only afforded to the rich or something, which is weird.
Exactly. That's my point exactly. And let me drive your point home. What happened to the children? Because you know what, nature will make a way. We would go outside and knock the shit out of a fire hydrant and play in that motherfucker, right? What happened to all that? The system got us in the house to keep us away from nature and put us in front of a fucking screen. What is that screen telling you? It's programming you, telling you to obey, it's telling you what you want to eat, telling you what you want to do, right? You're looking at a system. Now, we could get real deep on that one. Brother Bobby Hemmett did an astral projection. I think that's what it called, right, Wani? When you
Yes.
go outside.
Or
Bobby did
remote
one
viewing,
year.
depending on the technique.
Remote viewing, that's it. Bobby Hemmett did a remote view. I think he said astral projection, but he said he went outside of space and he found an area out in space where like it was a planet or something that had been completely destroyed, and there are human-like bodies floating around that were dead. They had died, and he said every last one of them had some type of chip or computer augmentation on them. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying it's a possibility that these computers and shit that are being flooded on us to take us away from nature, take us out of our being, could be part of a greater plot. But I'm gonna leave that one alone. Dr. Welsing said the system of inferiority turns some black teachers. Here we go. It turns some black teachers who could love and educate black children into teachers who hate and cannot educate. You get to the point where you can't take it no more. You know what I'm saying? You're like, like the book is, you're telling me what to do. It structures the total social experience of black young people so that they believe it's cool and more important to smoke weed and use foul language and learn to dance and learn to read and become expert mathematicians. It turns people into clowns rather than nation builders. Let me tell you how clever the whole that mechanism Dr. Welsing was talking about is by turning our people into clowns. Let me tell you how psychologically clever it is. I would teach my undergrads years ago about that mechanism. By we would watch a commercial that don't come on no more, but hopefully somebody here remembers it. Do y'all remember that commercial with Kevin Hart where he's it's maybe it's a Capital One commercial or some shit like that, but he walks outside and he's like, he walks up to a white lady. He's in this beautiful fucking neighborhood, and he walks up to the clean neighborhood. Everybody wants it. Look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Safety. What does that say? Safety and come on, safety and security, love and belonging. That's where your self-esteem comes from. A neighborhood, a safe neighborhood that's clean with love and belonging gives you self-esteem. Y'all see how this shit fits together like a puzzle? Well, he walked outside and he saw a white lady who was young. White lady was young, attractive, in front of a beautiful house. There's a supposition there. The supposition is white women don't have to do hard work to get a nice house. Got it? White women are just rich. That's programming. And he says, "Hey, blah, 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 we got this, and this is 0% APR." And the white lady says, "Oh, thank you." Then it turns to a black woman. Let's look at the differentiation. Black woman's maybe in her early 40s, late 30s. She's slightly overweight and she kind of looks worn a little bit, but she's in front of a beautiful house. Let me tell you what the black woman doesn't have with her: a man, right? Supposition there. Black women, strong black woman, that mantra, right? And Kevin Hart says, "Hey, check this out. Blah, 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 blah. You got 2.5 APR." And she says, "Oh, thank you." Then the camera turns again to a young white guy, maybe 30, 29, something like that, who is tall, towering, looking down at Kevin. There's a supposition there. There's a position of power, right? Kevin looks at him and says, "Hey, 2.3 APR." And the white man stops him. Skirt. "Hey, buddy, why are you yelling?" Supposition there. Towering, tall, white man, young white man telling this black dude that you're out of line. You're yelling in my neighborhood. Why are you yelling in my neighborhood? And Kevin says, "Because that's what I do." And just like that, a whole legion of black male children have been programmed because the brain is a computer, like Dr. Welsing said, and the brain computer just said, you know what? I want to live in a neighborhood like Kevin. How did Kevin did it? Kevin did it by acting a damn fool. So guess what? Starting tomorrow, I'm gonna practice acting a damn fool in class. This is psychology, ladies and gentlemen. This is psychological attack. And it's the primary vector of attack towards us and towards our children.
Especially our black boys.
Absolutely. Black boys are targeted so heavy. I don't know where to begin. My favorite job to date, I was professor of education. That was powerful as fuck at a historically black college. Let that one come back. But I would occasionally, after teaching my students how to teach, show up in their classroom. So this particular program had elementary education like teacher licensing. So I would show up in Memphis in the hood to watch my students teach, and give them pointers and give them notes. And I start to notice a pattern. Number one, I noticed that in elementary schools, the majority of the teachers in black schools were white women. I was like, "Wait, this is interesting." But I noticed a pattern that every time that a black male child acted masculine, I don't mean mannish or like a thug. I mean show leadership skills, confidence. It was almost, I was like, is this my imagination or the white female teachers swamping on them and trying to break them down? I mean, getting in their face, screaming bloody murder at them. Deontay, I'm never going to tell you again. If you raise your voice one more time, Deontay, I am going to punch you. I almost said, what the fuck you yelling at that little boy for? Fuck wrong with you? Let a black female yell at a white kid at an elementary school like that. I saw that over and over and over again. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I saw the inverse. I saw little black males who acted opposite of masculine, if you will, receive gold stars and a lot of praise, right? We got to be careful with this. I don't want to shut down my own space. But Dr. Welsing talks about that too. She calls it, where is it? I think feminization of black men. Where is that chapter? Y'all give me 1 minute because this is important. I might have to paraphrase it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna paraphrase it. She basically said, Dr. Welsing said that in a system that is so against black males, um, that tells a black that this out to get black males, a lot of black males will just say, you know what, it'll be easier to not act like a man. And yet, I'm not gonna shut my space down. Y'all got to kind of read in between the lines on what I'm saying. It's very unfortunate. I see it happen over and over and over again. Now, again, I love everybody. I'm not against anybody's
Is that
life.
is that in
Go ahead.
part psychological, but there is another aspect to it, and it's um I noticed that when I went to school, all the little boys that had personalities were given uh Adderall or Ritalin, or just to, yeah, they just like make them shut up. That's what happens if you go to the doctor. Almost everything that you would go to the doctor to complain about ends up being a tranquilizer. So basically, just shut the hell up. You're depressed? Here, take this and shut up. You feel bipolar? Here, take this and shut up. No matter what you say, you're going to get some sort of depressant. And that's basically what they want to do, is just like make you be quiet. And these kids really just had, these were not black boys, these were white kids. They really just had exuberant personalities, just typical, practical jokes and whatever in the class. And they literally put them on drugs for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. And, well, this system hates men too. This system hates men. It hates masculinity, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's white men too. It hates men, and when you show signs of masculinity, you know what? I'm said Dr. Tariq. Tariq Nasheed had a interesting space the other day where he was talking about how brilliant people that don't have a degree were, and he brought up the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'm bringing this up because Elijah Muhammad had it right in education, and I say this as a somebody who's licensed in several states to teach. It is my professional and personal opinion that you need to separate boys from the girls at certain ages. They need to be separated because boys are different than females. We're just totally different, especially at certain ages. And like Wani said, psychiatrists are drugging really masculinity. Boys act a certain way. Now, if we flip around and turn this into a ethnic thing, we look at foundational Black Americans or those with from a deeply melanated culture. We were never designed to be in a goddamn classroom. A lot of the depression that we have comes from lack of vitamin D, which comes directly from the sun. What I'm saying is we need to be in the sun running around. Um, and here goes the fucked up part. The rich people know this. They know this. We're the one, the masses are the ones getting fucked over. When I went to Georgetown University, I didn't finish there. I went to professional school there for a little while until I went broke. At Georgetown, we used to have classes outside. I mean, we grown as hell but we would have class outside. Why not? It works. And the professor would shut up when planes would be flying over the Dulles. She's like, hold on one second, the plane flying over. You know what I'm saying? Imagine a lot of these problems Wani just talked about would disappear if you held class outside. A beautiful day. Let's sit outside and learn about it. But you're in a room. Why? Because we're stuck in Western civilization. We're stuck in European ideology. To quote Dr. Sharshi McIntyre, we are in a European fucking nightmare. We're in a cave. That classroom is a cave. Those lights are unnatural. They're sucking your fucking soul out of you. I get in trouble all the time because I turn my lights off. I bring my own lights. The
Damn, you
frequency of
bring your
those
own light.
lights,
God.
I do. I do. I bring. If you saw I might find a picture of my classroom. My classroom's usually really beautiful. I have like theatrical lighting, but we're dealing with psychology, ladies and gentlemen. I got a master's degree in educational psychology. Um, I'm at war when I'm teaching. I'm at fucking war, just like the casinos. The casinos, light with respect to lighting, Wani, casinos make the lighting in a casino similar to the lighting inside the womb of a stomach
Mm-hmm.
in utero. I do that with my class too. The kids, the young people come in my lectures and they're comfortable all of a sudden, and they don't know why. I know why, because you feel like you're in mama's womb.
Do they
Um,
still give free food and drinks?
Free food and drinks? No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's what my mom said. She said they don't want you to stop gambling. It's, the carpet is
Oh yeah, at the
psychedelic.
casino, yes.
She said the carpet had a psychedelic print, so you're dizzy and disoriented, and you're just like, and you're fed and
Oh
all that.
yeah, and it's so deep, Wani. In the casino, we're talking about casinos. The casinos don't have straight lines. Want to know why? Because let me tell you how deep guys. We are up against something so fucking thorough. They don't have straight lines because a straight line presents a logical foundation in your mind of Boolean math. Boolean is true, false, yes, no, open, close. So if it was a straight line from one machine to one machine, your brain has a choice. Do I want to go here or go there? And the logic being, if your brain is presented with a choice, you could become aware and say, well, you know what? I don't really want to be in this casino. And you walk out. So the casino doesn't have straight lines. So you get confused and you're like, wait a minute, I'm stuck in here. Another thing that caught me off guard when I was in my 20s, I went to this girl house. I drove to meet this girl. She was at Ole Miss, and we had not Ole Miss, was that place I drove from fucking Birmingham to goddamn LSU in Baton Rouge, means red stick. Um, she went to LSU. We went and had daiquiris and had a real good night. You understand me? And after that night, I got my hungover ass in my mama car and attempted to drive from Baton Rouge back to Birmingham. I made it to Biloxi. Biloxi has casinos, and I just had to go. I couldn't. I was too hungover. But when I walked in that casino, I felt fucking great and didn't know why. Well, I later found out that casinos pump 100% oxygen in that motherfucker. It makes you feel superhuman. You don't get sleepy because they want you to spend that money.
Yeah, they are no good.
Yeah, the lighting
I
is
went from
crazy.
I
hungover.
The
have
lighting
never
is
been
crazy.
there.
Yeah,
I don't
don't
like
ever go there.
gambling.
Yeah, don't ever go there. I've been there a few times. They do give out like free sodas and things like that still, but the food isn't free.
But they have it on a protocol. They won't give it to you as frequent if you're not gambling. If you the more you spending money, they just keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming. But if you stop, they'll slow it down. I mean, we're in a system of domination and control that we're not aware of. What was it? What's the guy's name? Dostoevsky. Fyodor Dostoevsky. Y'all want to read some deep shit? Read Love and War. Fyodor says the best way to keep a man in prison is to make him think. I'm gonna fuck it up. God dang it! What did Fyodor say? The best way to keep a man in prison is to make him. You know what? I'm about to look the shit up. Hold on. Hold on 1 second, because it's too important for me to fuck this one up. It's so powerful. Dosta. Now, let me try to spell. There it is. I was going to say how to spell. This phone's listening to me. I put D and it said Dostoevsky. Come on now. How many times do people put Dostoevsky in here?
I can't spell
Dostoevsky.
Dostoevsky.
It's not easy.
I can barely say it.
His books are deep as fuck. The Russians, man, the best way. I'm looking up the quote for you. Those y'all like, what's going on? Yeah, that's it. So on Fyodor Dostoevsky says the best way to keep a prisoner from escaping is to make sure he never knows he's in prison.
That's the casino in a
Gotcha.
nutshell.
Hey, like them
Dostoevsky,
little boys say, got
when you
him.
said Dostoevsky, tell me why I was literally mumbling that I didn't know that's where you were going. Dostoevsky.
Wow.
That's crazy.
What'd you say?
When you were talking about Dostoevsky, I was literally thinking about that quote, and I should have just got off mic and said it. I didn't know that's what you were looking up. That's funny.
Wow. That
Synchronicity.
I wonder. Yeah. Ishmael, what's on your mind?
Okay, yes. Good evening, family. Thank you so much, Professor Allen, for your excellent lecture. I really enjoyed it, and I'm enjoying it. So, just to touch on, do schools teach FBA children powerlessness? That's interesting because earlier today I was reading uh, from a Black reader history by Dr. Claude Anderson. And it says here, on page 34, education generally considered the mechanism for upward class mobility has been an issue for Blacks since the founding of this nation. First, it was against the law and public policies to teach a slave to read or write. Any
Preach.
any person caught teaching a slave to read and write would suffer the penalty of 39 lashes with a whip and $100 fine. Following the Civil War, after nearly 360 years of slavery and being denied an education, approximately 5 million penniless, landless, jobless, uneducated, unclothed, homeless, and unprotected Blacks were set free to wander the countryside. They could neither
Right.
read nor write. Some public and private schools were set up by sympathetic churches, abolitionists, individuals to teach Blacks manual skills and to be subservient. Congress established the Freedmen's Bureau, a government agency to aid the transition of former slaves to a life of freedom. Before it became dysfunctional, the Bureau funded what are known today as HBCs, historically black colleges. Those schools started as elementary type schools, grew in progress to high schools, teachers, college, and finally full colleges and universities. Although 96% of blacks in America were suffering from planned ignorance. I got to repeat that.
There you
Let me
go.
read that one more time. Although 96% of blacks in America were suffering from planned ignorance after the Civil War, they believed, oh, there's that Majaro spirit, they believed in the possibilities of education. They believed if they acquired education, reading, writing, arithmetic, and deciphering, they could overcome imposed ignorance and become self-sufficient and competitive and a competitive group. Blacks diligently pursued education in the new schools. Parents went all out to make their children attend whatever school was available. I know my grandmother was really keen on that for me back in the early 70s. Whatever school was available,
Well,
whether pub.
well, you said something real.
Go ahead, sir.
You said something real. You said something real important, ladies and gentlemen. I hope y'all caught what Ishmael said about, um, basically after emancipation, uh, we were denied the ability to to learn, and basically that was the beginning of the prison industrial complex. So this shit's so clever. They created a prison complex system under the 13th Amendment. If somebody ever tells you slavery was abolished, tell them that I said you're a liar. Because in 13th Amendment says slavery is abolished, but for means except, ladies and gentlemen, except the commission of a crime. I'm paraphrasing that. The duly commission of a crime. Well, anyway, during the period he's talking about, they made it illegal. You had what we call vagrancy laws, so it was illegal to walk around without a job. So I want y'all to wrap your head around this. You're a black man that nobody will hire because you don't have because you're black, basically, because you know a former slave. Basically, that's what it boils down to it. And so you walking around, and it's illegal to walk around. So that's slavery. It's like conundrum, man. Like it's actually farcical, believe it or not. Go ahead and land your plane, Ishmael.
Yes, sir. Uh, Real quick, um, but then it goes into something that's so extraordinary that I have to share this because it really touched me. But then it goes back into some of the lectures that I sat in with our great teacher, Dr. Claude Anderson, when he was talking about the whole purpose of this, uh, this integration thing. It wasn't really about that. It was about trying to get some money for the school system that they needed because they didn't have the proper books that they had to come in according to Dr. Anderson in his hometown, that people had to come in before the school year with these big old erasers and these dilapidated schools and dilapidated equipment and spend all week just erasing the stuff up out of the book so that they could learn. So they were just asking for resources to match that, or not to match, but just to come close to what the so-called white students had or the white community had just across the track. But I've digressed. During the 30-year time period between 1866 and 1896, former slaves set an educational achievement that has yet to be broken by any racial or ethnic group. When slavery ended in 1865, approximately 98% of Black Americans were illiterate, of course, foundational Black Americans. By 1896, Blacks had reduced their illiteracy rate by more than half, from 98% to 45%. This is us with us, by us, for us, and this was us. not with no integration, with black teachers uh, teaching us, black women teaching
Right.
us. I mean, like it's just what you said earlier, and then what and then what the other sister said earlier was so powerful because just think about that within itself, within that circle, when we were depending on us for our education, and they know how to work with Tyrone. They understand Tyrone's temperaments, or little James temperaments, or little Ishmael, or little Ab. They understand that because they got one at
Oh
home.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had a little boy, man, on number one. Like, you know what I'm saying? How you gonna reach? He would wear a do rag, and you know, little boys now be wearing a little face mask, right? They say no face, no case. But which is kind of funny if you think about it. But you know, I don't. As a black man, I don't trip about that. I ain't got time to fucking say take off your do rag, take off your hoodie. Shit, I wear hoodies, and little stuff like that makes such a difference. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Children don't want to feel judged, you know. Whereas you find a lot with on the other side of the railroad tracks, you find that those professors and educators um, have want you to submit to them. It's a lot of insecurity I've noticed on the other side of the railroad tracks. There's a almost a need to be worshipped that I don't feel as though foundational Black America, and I could be wrong, I haven't really met a bunch of foundational Black American professors and teachers who have a need to be worshipped. I met some strict ones,
mm,
but I think I met a medical school professor one time that was a jerk. But you know, we down to earth, we everyday people. That's all we is.
that's right.
Appreciate it,
I,
Savannah. What's on your mind? Go ahead. And, if you had to land your plane, go ahead, Ishmael. I thought you were
yes,
done.
yes, I'm gonna land my plane right now. Uh, yeah, so that particular type of uh, uh, education, I went through that. The sister was earlier was talking about Sister Tax was talking about uh, or commenting pertaining, and you were too, pertaining to giving Ritalin. I was given that. Yeah, yeah,
Really?
69, 71,
Now, do
72.
you remember why?
Because they said that your son well, I remember sitting there and sitting in the principal's office or the vice principal and said, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
your son is just too active. He's high strung."
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
wasn't
called
getting in
being a
any
boy.
trouble, just
Boys,
being a boy.
Exactly. It's called being a
boys
boy.
do that.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's what they do. What is wrong with these
Yes.
people? They know about child development, supposedly.
Right.
Well,
And
again,
this was in Seattle. This was going on in
again,
Oh
Seattle.
my
Unbelievable.
goodness.
well, Wani asked a really good question that I want to
And I
address
land there. Thank you.
with Doc. Thank you, brother. I want to address what Wani just said with Dr. Francis Cress Wilson. What Wani said was, "What's wrong with these? Call being a boy. What's wrong with these people?" Well, according to Dr. Francis Welsing, Western social and behavioral science, particularly psychology, has been content with behavioral fragment analysis and multiple theoretical explanations for different behaviors. This demonstrates a failure to comprehend the entire forest while focused on isolating trees or clumps of trees. Failure to comprehend the whole behavioral energy force field has resulted in isolated behavior modification techniques and programs. The inability to grasp the manner in which the total social structure determines the behavior of the individual personality, and the tendency to focus on isolated neurochemical sequences and mechanisms as causing certain behavioral pattern constellations. This limited pattern of perception and the apparent necessity of pattern of endless abstracting with the inability to seize the whole. European society, ladies and gentlemen, my sister Wani, um, they divide. They're divisive, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not attacking them. I'm just saying they have a tendency of the in grad school, they in school of education they call it deconstructionalism. They need to take something apart, take it apart in little pieces and study every little piece individually. Now, in some cases, like an automobile, that works. But when you're dealing with uh, a complex organism, something created by God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator, whatever you want to call him, it's very important to deal with harmonies, which is what foundational Black Americans operate in. We operate in understanding the forest, the whole forest, whereas European, it can be law, it can be medicine, it can be whatever the fuck you want to call it. They isolate on one little leaf on a tree. So little boy is acting up. He's running around. European says, I need to address that. I need to fix him running around, as opposed to saying, okay, he's running around the room. Maybe he has excess testosterone. I need to come up with a plan to burn that testosterone. Hey, young man, have you thought about playing basketball? Hey, young man, you might need to work out. You see what I'm saying? It's a very divisive culture that, in my view, is actually pretty damn dangerous. Savannah, what's on your mind?
Hello, everyone in the room. Thank you, Professor, for hosting this space. Um, yeah, so do, do, the schools teach FBA children powerlessness. I would agree. Yes. Touching on just what was mentioned earlier on about the books in schools. Um, like just reading like Native Sons. Like I remember having to reread that one again, because I kind of feel like we had gotten like a watered down version of it when reading it and going over it in class, and just looking back on like the different books, like he mentioned already, but like including the Bluest Eyes. Professor, you mentioned like that whole setup for like you know where you were from. Um, just like listening to like and going through the different stories and never really adding on to it. Like for example, Sula, right? When talking about that book, we didn't really touch into like the classness of it all. Like we focused more so on her just being like a black little girl who was just trying to find herself. We didn't really go into like the classness of it all. So when you were talking about how um, the rich people or the well-to-do black people um, were seen like the upper, not like the upper echelon, but like up on the mountains versus poor people down in the bottom. I just
Hmm.
remember that being talked about, and we never went over that, right? We never talked about why that was and why someone would be so curious about what was going on up top, and how people get there. And it was really, really messed up because, like, I remember there being like talks about sexual abuse in the book. And again, we didn't really talk about that or go into that or just to correct that. There was just so much thrown at us that I think was really, really purposely, to go against our psyche. I talked about that trip that they had us go on in high school, where we started in Georgia, then we moved to um, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, um, and ended our way in Memphis. And throughout that whole trip, they pushed the whole thing of like nonviolence, nonviolence. This is the way because of MLK, right? And then going over the sixth principle of nonviolence. And like, if you didn't understand at the time what they were doing, you would think that they were just trying to give you tools in order for you to have a good life, right? You think that it was just their way of like giving you, quote unquote, like they cared about you is how they kind of um, worded it, and how they kind of like gave you all the information. And so for anyone that don't know me, I grew up in the system, right? And so for me, I felt like this trip would have been good for me because I was quote unquote always been vocal, always been like, hey, we're not doing that, or let's not talk about that in terms of just like boundaries and things that teachers would try to do in class. For example, we had this one teacher who told this girl Mara that he would slap the black off her face. Mind you, Mara light skin. So I was always the quote unquote, yeah, goody two shoes, oh yes, Savannah, she good, she straight A. But like when it came down to it, I was always the kid that spoke up. I spoke out. And so they had me on Adderall since I was 6, right? Because exactly
Wow.
because of the simple fact that I was always outspoken. I was always just like, we're not doing that. Why are we talking about
But
this?
that's your job as an American citizen, as a foundational Black American female. Our job is to address injustice. So what you just said, Savannah, proves Wani's point that they're trying to shut down. They're trying. What'd you say, Wani? Trying to with the medication, trying to
Tranquilize everybody.
yeah,
I
trying
don't
to
know.
tranquilize. It has nothing to
Some
do with.
part of it is diabolical, but another part is just laziness. Just like
Hmm.
some people in the medical world would just tranquilize a lot of seniors and people with mental illnesses just to make them shut up. They just go to sleep. That's their go-to. I mean, they all these drugs have different names, but they all basically do the same thing: knock you out or make you sleepy, or they're depressants. That's what
Hmm.
they all have in common.
Well, my doctor, when I was in law school, I had just a dump serotonin. It was so hard my first semester. I did well my first semester, but I was just out of it. I didn't have any more focus. I just was out. My doctor gave me some Adderall, and I had to get rid
Hmm.
of it because I was higher than
But
a
it works
motherfucker.
different on
Like it was.
adults. It has the
Yeah, I guess
opposite
that's a good point.
effect.
Yeah, it gave me anxiety once I got to college, and I had to just
Mm-hmm.
basically stop doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But but see, they couldn't do it once I was living with my mom, right? And so they already knew the story with my mom. They knew the history with my mom, and so that's where they quote unquote boom, you're a ward of the state, right? Um, and so knowing all of
I'm sorry to
oh,
hear
but
that.
see, that's the thing, right? My story, my testimony, I think is so important because I got to see so many different socioeconomic backgrounds, right? I live with white people. I live with Spanish people. I live with black people. I've lived in poor towns. I've lived in rich towns. I've lived in the middle income towns, right? So I have my perspective on things is so much different, but I'm also able to give people a different lens. And so when talking about this and just talking about teachers in general, for me, I always had a hard time with older white teachers and hit or miss older black teachers, right? And the issue that I had with older white teachers was just that whole thing of like you all were talking about how they would talk to how they would talk to our brothers, right? And again, you're not about to talk to him like that. Like, miss, you don't even know what he do. You don't know what he about to go to when he go home. You don't know what he's about to deal with. Why are you getting on him about not having a pencil? He clearly don't have a pencil because, his mama didn't buy him a pencil, right? And his mama couldn't buy him a pencil because not because she don't care. She couldn't afford to, So I was always like that kid, um, and I peeped it from an early age about how a lot of our kids would just constantly just get picked on and berated, and so for that I became the quote unquote problem if needed, if need be. And so Tariq talked about that whole, or in Tariq's space last night, that young kid who was talking about he had a hard time making friends. I think that's crazy because I've been to over 25 different schools and I've always was able to make friends. Easier obviously when I lived in black communities versus white communities, but I always was able to make friends, right? He talked about how he was a nerd. There's nerds at black schools too. There's nerds. There's every group of people that they try to make it seem like there isn't, right? And I just happen to be friends with all of them. The cool, the nerds, the athletes, the orators, every type of group there is. But someone had talked about how they're taking out those programs, and they're taking out those programs on purpose, right? It was when I went to all white schools for the most part, where I was in orchestra and was able to give me orchestra, give me music that helped me to calm my mind in a lot of different things, right? Because I'm not gonna say that I wasn't hyperactive. Oh my gosh, like I still have ADHD. Very, very, I think it's probably played to me having a high metabolism, thank God. But it's one of those things where instead of it being like you're a bad kid, it should have just been, oh wow, you're a very rambunctious, you're very like advent, I don't know, just anything but bad because
Active.
active, perfect, right? Because I noticed the kids that
Right.
when you constantly told them they were bad, they did the bad shit, right? They would go and be the quote unquote bad. But when you told a kid that they were smart, when you told a kid that they could do, which for me was a lot of the male teachers that came in to my life, which is why I could never have that whole, oh yeah, men ain't shit, men ain't nothing, because the best teachers I ever had were black men, right? I remember, I'll never forget his name, Mr. Preacher. And I was like 14 years old, maybe not, or 13. And he said to me, he said, Savannah, if you know everything, why you keep getting in trouble for the same stuff, right? He's seeing that I'm having this issue with these white teachers. He's seeing that I'm having an issue with these white students. And he's telling me, Savannah, they see you. They see you. They know they're jealous of you, and they know how to get you out of your quote unquote zone. So don't you know, he helped me to navigate a lot of that, right? But he wasn't a teacher. He was quote unquote student aid, teacher's aid, right? But it's like they don't. He was just one of the very few, right? And I think they're purposely taking out the black teachers, especially the black men teachers, because a lot of them, a lot in my experience, they were the ones that shut down a lot of the crazy foolishness. No, we're not about to encourage dudes to put on dresses. No, we're not about to encourage guys putting on makeup. Let's go ahead and do this. We can do it this way, right? And you don't see that a lot of times in a lot of different school environments, because some school environments purposely do not hire male teachers. They barely don't even want them as gym teachers. And I think, so I could just talk about this school stuff for forever, because I'm so passionate about schooling. I think it sucks because I was one of the exceptions when it comes to foster care, because I cared about school, because I love reading. I think that was the only thing that set me apart from my quote unquote peers. But we all were smart in our own different ways. Like, we were all, in my opinion, right there and ready to go on to the next step. But because people, quote unquote, maybe their parents didn't have, or didn't want to like not file them, or they just didn't know how to go about getting to quote unquote college, or to look at different trade schools, that you see a lot of kids quote unquote feel like they slipped and they fell. And I think the biggest thing for me, that I think that a lot of people don't even equate to being successful, is I deem the kids that came out of high school, maybe they had a couple babies or two with their significant other, creating beautiful families, as being successful as well. Because still to this day, when I don't even get on Facebook anymore for real, because it's like I see a kid that I went to school with who's dead and gone, right? Um, Literally like clockwork. I feel like I lost like 3 peers a year from violence or whatnot. And I feel like that right there is not talked about. You literally, you just go on to the next. One year, there was a young girl who got ran over by a bus at the end of the school year, or not, excuse me, end of the school day. They don't talk about it. They didn't really talk to us about it. Yeah, they brought on quote unquote therapists, but they don't really, they don't really talk to us. Like, we're not allowed to have bad days in school. And so I just feel like,
which is why we need each other.
yeah,
But
yeah,
go
my
ahead,
bad.
land your plane on
But to say
Savannah.
all that,
No, no,
to say
you're
all
good.
that, yeah, we need to just stop thinking that we can leave kids in school and that the schools are going to solve it. It's going to be on us to just do what we can do as aunties, uncles, moms, just because of the simple fact the schools aren't going to do it. And unfortunately, they spend most of their times there. But yeah, that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Savannah, for that submission. The Black, what's on your mind? And then we'll go to Patty.
What's going on, Professor Wanted? Uh, is do anybody remember the Benjamin Banneker mathematical competitions that they used to have in school?
I never heard of it.
Well,
I'm from Alabama. Enough said.
okay, well, in Texas, we had this mathematical competition every year, kind of like the spelling bee that
Wow.
that people do. But the last I remember this like it was yesterday. Like the last year they had it in Texas was my my last year of middle school before going to high school. That was eighth grade. Well, they switched it down now. You know what I'm saying? Ninth grade is considered. I mean, eighth grade is considered high school now. I don't know why, but uh, they stopped the program. You know what I'm saying? A little mathematical competition because to how I see it now, and I read a couple of articles. It was basically because it wasn't enough white kids that was involved in winning. It was mostly black kids winning, which I felt like that should have been a known because I mean it's named after Benjamin Banneker, and I know my generation that inspired a lot of black people to like mathematics and computers and science and stuff. So that's where I kind of got my little geeky side from. But the when they stopped it, the year they stopped it, that's the year I was prescribed Adderall and Ritalin because they said I was over hyper, and my granny she made me stop taking it because she told me it wasn't good for me. She didn't like the way it just made me quiet and not really just talk a lot. So when I it may sound kind of crazy, but when I turned 16, they were trying to prescribe it to me again, and my granny just told me smoke some weed if it get down to it. Like go in the backyard, smoke the blow with my cousin a couple of times, and then leave it at that. Cause and now like that, I kind of like got accustomed to that. Like every time I read, I gotta smoke a blunt, but I say that because they took away programs like that and a lot of band and musical programs and art programs like you said earlier from mostly the black schools and when it came down to like the white schools in the suburbs, they added more programs to their schools. They brought back wood shop in the Caucasian schools, like in the suburbs. They brought back wood shop, home ec, and they took that away from the hood. So I feel like those things that the previous generation got to indulge in, like wood shop, to learn how to build things and it's therapeutic. Cause my uncle still do that now. Like when he got a shop in his garage, when he get upset or he get frustrated, he go in his garage and make little stools or you know what I'm saying, little wood carvings. So I feel like they knew the reason to take that away from regular high schools and then put it into a secondary, you know what I'm saying, industrial school or like ITT Tech type of shit. So it can be harder for us to, you know what I'm saying, gain access to those type of jobs after because most people like my uncles and them, they left high school and went straight into certain job careers just because of the things that they learned in high school from like automotive and wood shop. So it I feel like after the dismantlement of integrate and they made integration possible and they knew how and they made like tag and stuff to take out the gifted children and separate those and made the prison and pipeline, the school to prison pipeline possible. That's when it it was basically like stuff that they used to do during the 80s was basically behind a paywall. You had to pay, go to a special school or go to a school that already had it. And that's the reason why now in Texas we doing those school vouchers because a lot of black people, especially in my community, realized that the school districts wasn't willing, not even like the teachers on a little teachers administration actually didn't want to bring those programs back, and the parents wanted to. So I feel like if we have to get to a point where we control more of our institutions, and if it comes down to the point where they do dismantle public school and it force us to actually take responsibility for our own children future and build institutions like our ancestors did after the Civil War, then I'm all for it because I feel like it's better for us to teach our children because that's how the white people trying to do. They want to teach their children certain things the way they want to teach it, and I feel like it's their right to do it, and I feel like we should do the same thing. I don't really see nothing wrong with it because at the end of the day, we gonna continue to lose. We gonna continue to fight multiple battles, doing it like this, letting our oppressor educate us. And I land there.
Oh yeah, very powerful. We're gonna go ahead and go with Patty. What's on your mind, Patty?
Hey, hey, I see this is where all the cool kids hang out. Shout out to you, Professor Wani, family that's in the building. Um, well, before I start, hold on. Let me give a shout out to Nikki's West. I know you ain't talking about the original Magic City of Birmingham, Nikki's West. That food
You
be
know it's
good.
good. You know it's
Lord,
good.
that food good. Y'all, if y'all ever go through Alabama, you go through Birmingham, please stop at Nikki's West for real.
That's so
It
good.
is, it is. Um, yeah, to the title, do schools teach FBA children powerlessness? Um, of course they do. From the way you were talking, you were throwing up like Maslow. I was like, are you a sped teacher? Because that's all the those are the questions that's on the test.
No, I'm licensed to teach history and but no, I have a my master's degree is in educational
Hmm.
psychology, and I think God kind of stumbled me onto that. When I after I finished law school, I moved to Memphis with a girl I was engaged to. We ended up getting married. And long story short, I couldn't find a job working at a firm, so my wife allowed me to go back to school, and I went back to get a master's degree in education. That's what my master was going to be, but it was so useless that I just stumbled. It was so random.
Hmm.
I met a professor I liked, and I just start following. I started taking this class, so I ended up in ed psych. But I understand why it was ordained, because I needed to know how my people are being attacked. We're being attacked with psychology, and psychology is a course that a lot of us don't take. In the black community, we act like we're kind of like it's kind of taboo, but that's where we're being attacked. It's through psychological warfare.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that you were talking about, those are the things that we also learn when you're becoming a certified special education teacher. Um,
Hmm.
but another thing I wanted to bring up, have you ever heard of Southern Normal High School?
So Southern
Southern
what?
Normal.
Southern Norman? No, I
Okay,
haven't.
that's a school located in Brewton, Alabama. Uh, it it it's a quote unquote freedman school. I went there. I lived there. Black teachers,
Okay.
black males. We're on a farm. If you got in trouble, you had to do work detail. But they told you who you are. They told you were a freedman. My parents were, my father was in the military out in California, and my mom was like, no, you got to, you need to get some more blackness. Even though we were going to Alabama every single summer, it was like, nah, you need to go down there. So I ended up going there, living there, and I learned everything from changing tires to planning to sewing to cooking it was so much. And so um do you think that when they do probably chuck the whole education system, which I actually do kind of agree with, because our children are not learning because they're teaching the test. That's it. They're just teaching the test. They're not
Yep.
teaching
Yep.
anything. I
Agreed. 100%.
example, you ask any third grader, do they know what their vowels are? They don't know. They can't even tell you what the actual vowels are, because all they're doing is trying to just teach the test. And so, do you think that bringing back those normal schools, and I think that young lady, she said her grandmother went to one of those like teacher type schools. I believe she went to one of the normal schools. Those were um black motivated uh high schools. They were schools for teachers, but a lot of them turned into regular high schools, started from 7th grade to the 12th grade. Do you think that those would come in handy, like forming those now would come in handy for our children today?
Well, yeah, I think yes, absolutely. We need our own school system. Basically, in graduate school of psychology, ed psych, we learned that children it's something called self, which you should know as a sped educator, self-efficacy. You believe you believe what you can do based off several factors, and one main factor is if you see somebody else that looks like you doing it. I could have said that better, but that was so fucking critical. Basically, people believe, you believe you can do what people, you want to see yourself in the book. I did this as a professor and administrator. I use self-efficacy to identify needs. It's so complex, but it's so critical. So basically, people, if you see people that look like you doing something, you're gonna do it, right? So let's deal with that for a second. When you turn on the TV, what type of people generally do you see playing the roles as doctors and scholars and physicists? You see some white man with crazy hair all over his head, right? The Einstein mantra. Well, what is the system telling black men they can do? Dribble a ball, you know what I'm saying? Kick a football. It's called self-efficacy. So to answer your question, yes, we need to see we need schools where our young children can see people who look just like them running the school. That changed. I've changed so many environments just showing up and being the black dude with the I used to have a Lexus. And like I'm on Facebook. My first group of students are 30. They turned 30 last year, 31. And I was almost their age when I taught them. But my point of bringing that up is I've noticed that a lot of black men that I taught um, are teachers now, and I can only attribute that to them seeing me doing it. You know what I'm saying? That's called self-efficacy, and self-efficacy has been weaponized against us by showing us images on TV and on media of black men and black women um, operating within certain roles. It's so subtle, you know. It's a good question though.
Thank you for letting me speak. Shout out to the family.
Outstanding. Thank you for speaking. No taxation. Educate us.
Man, I wish I could. Y'all are educating me. How you doing?
Oh, it's been a long time. Yo, you got to say it's been a long time
I know
coming.
that's right. How you doing, Wani?
Hey, how you doing?
Girl, I'm trying to make it. That's what I'm trying to do. One thing that is not talked about enough for me is environmental racism and what it does to our children. When I did research with the UAB. It was a longitudinal study. I forgot when I was down there. Anyway, we were down there in Pritchard. Who was the lady said that her people was from Mobile? That's south of Mobile for that lady. That's the even poorer section of Mobile. It was so bad they annexed it off. Africa Town is
Wow.
down there. You should know that, Professor. Africa Town.
I love Mobile, but I hadn't spent that much time there. I love going
It's
down
not
there
Mobile. It's
because
man. You need to go to Pritchard. Go get.
I know where Pritchard
Yeah,
is. I know where that
and
is.
Africa Town, and the slave ship, the last slave ship that came over here that sunk is down there. And I
Right,
always
right.
tell people that it's always been my firm belief, and if I ever get enough money and can really retire for real, I want to set up something right there in Alabama for people to come and tour the entire state from top to bottom. That's how historical it is. And everybody needs to do it, not just black folks, everybody. But anyway, that's a dream come true for me. The other dream come true is what you was talking about, education. I was sounding the alarm on them closing the Department of Education when Obama was in office his first 4 years. I saw it coming. I said, y'all better get busy doing something. They finna close it. And Trump came behind him. And of course, he put Betsy up in there, Betsy DeVos up in there because she knows how to balance the books. She knows how to cut the fat out. And uh, and now he got some old flunky up in there so they can go ahead and shut it down. He's going to try to get that thing closed uh, during this term. Trust me. And I will tell you this:
Ye-
maybe we need that, like the lady was saying. Maybe we need to have it closed, and maybe that will push us to the next level. I don't know. You know, my son is 47. So I just don't know what I would do. I couldn't put my child in a school. They'd probably lock me up, and him too. But we got to do something. We have to do something. And I will say this: if you're considering anything, uh, Professor, look to the internet. You're going to find out that it's easier. See, I did that research on that years ago. I was trying to get some teachers and tell them, come on, y'all, let's start something on the internet. You know, white folks got it already. Go look at whatever model they doing and copy it. That's all you got to do. You ain't even got to do no real research.
Right.
You know how we do, and perfect it, because I know they ain't perfected it. It'll be black centered and all that kind of stuff. And you right there, you in Atlanta, so you ought to be able to get pretty good backing out there. Your money wise.
Yeah, I've thought about
Yeah.
that. No taxation said something very powerful. I got mixed emotions about Trump's decisions to disband the um, Department of Education. They've obviously failed us. That's just clear cut. You don't need a degree in education to understand that the system is an abject failure. Um, but what gives me a little pause is you look back to the collapse of empire, and you look at that history, history of Rome, the collapse of Rome, the collapse of any imperial dynasty. The last step before empire totally collapse is the cannibalization of agency. So I mean, not agency. What's the word? Institution. So the Department of Education is an institution, and let's be real. Um, 100, I think 160 billion or maybe 60 billion. Somebody can fact check me on that. Goes through it every year,
And that's why
and
they go, and that's what they want. You just hit-
that's what
That's
they
what they
want.
want. Hey, let's be real clear. It's really about the
Yep.
money. It's not about education.
Right.
Because
And I'm
Betsy
just
DeVos, like I said, one thing she knows how to do is cut the fat and find out where the money is. And that's what, now that her
right.
job is done, they'll probably put the nail in the coffin. I don't know what the answer is, Professor, except for what everybody else has been saying. We got to pull it together some kind of way. And I will tell you this, those organizations where I know down in Miami some years ago, a guy I knew, he's an attorney down there, and I was talking to him about something, and oh, he was upset because they have some kind of organization, the black attorneys down there in Miami, and they go into the schools and teach classes. They're supposed to take turns, and people wasn't taking their turn. And he got to go and all that kind of stuff. And he went and found out in where the black folks live and go to school down there in Miami, that the kids were learning how to do math on YouTube because they didn't have a teacher. They was teaching themselves
And learning
and
too.
learning
Yeah.
and learning.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have a lot of different, if I had money, dreams. And one of them would be to have a law camp for kids. I want you, when you consider doing this, Professor, please include these people who donate their time.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
know how
yeah.
to do it, and get them involved, because it's an all hands on deck situation that we've been in for a number of years, and we still don't have enough hands.
We got enough hands. We've been propagandizing to being against each
Well, I
other.
think we've
That's
been
one good
poisoned as well. It's hard to think when your brain is full of lead. Your body is full of lead. Gone down there in the
attack
kitchen.
and from every
That's what I
vector.
was researching on. Adolescence and poverty, and I discovered that the lead level content in those children were sky high. And there was one guy, a white, old white cracker down there, and he was the main culprit because it's illegal federally to have lead paint and all that kind of stuff. And he had all the apartments where the black people were living. He owned them. And I called the EPA in. I didn't call him in. I called my daddy. He called him in, if you want to know the truth about it. And And they came on in there and told that man what he was supposed to do. And one of the first thing he did was burn a building. And what it did was have the lead go up in the air and then come down in the ground, and that's where the kids played. So that was not a solution, him thinking he was going to get out of it. I was on him so bad. The man did die while I was down there, and his daughter swore it was because of me. It don't make no difference. The thing about it is you're not going to poison our babies. And y'all think about Flint. They still don't have clean water. You know what they got? Water filters. Jackson, Mississippi. White folks got the water and the black ones don't. It's all over the country. I said the water wars are coming here. They're here. There's going to come a time when we are not, black people, we're not going to even have clean water. How is that going to affect our children? See how important stuff
Yeah,
is?
Well, I do
And
see.
like
I
yeah.
he
do see.
said, it's a system. It's designed,
It's a
it is designed to get you out of the system by any way possible. They don't care if
it's
they got to carry
perfected.
you out.
It's a perfected
That's right.
system.
See
She brought up lead. When I moved to Memphis, I noticed there was a lot of like brothers here. I love the people in Memphis. Well, I say here, like I'm still there, but brothers and sisters in Memphis, it was so violent, and I couldn't understand like what's the difference because Memphis, people are not that different than Alabama, Birmingham people, real similar, really. But I found out it was real high levels of lead in the water, and lead, like no taxation said, it changes your development as a child. This is real deep
And it
stuff.
makes you
Uh,
violent. Ask Baba Dick
yep.
Gregory, God rest his soul. He was the one that came and told us what was happening in Chicago with those police officers. He said they're carrying too much lead on them. How about that? How about
Wow,
that?
that's deep. Yeah, yeah. What's on your mind?
Oh, I just came up. Yeah, you guys. I'm sorry. Good evening to the room. I just came up to say, as a person that grew up in New York City in the projects, but I was born in a affluent area, like 4 blocks away from the projects. I later was raised in. I went to one of the best schools in elementary, and myself and my sister went to one of the top 10 schools in the country at the time, which was Brooklyn Tech. So by about 15, I ended up tutoring the students that went to the other elementaries, and I just wanted to disagree with the fact that you guys are saying that they are teaching to the test. They are absolutely not teaching to the test to the children that are underprivileged. They are teaching everything except the test. I was taught to the test. And so that's why I was able to get into those schools, and so was my sister. Um, this is not a norm for us to get into Brooklyn Tech, Stuyvesant, Bronx Science. Um,
Hold on, I got a question for you because I kind of lost context. What do you mean by there? Who is they are
they
not teaching to the
the
test?
administrations of schools, board of ed, they are not teaching to the exams. They are teaching everything except what's on the exams to the most impoverished students. They I noticed that the children.
Well, I think, and excuse me for interrupting you, but I think the point that she brought up of teaching to the test, yeah, I hear you, and you're correct. They aren't giving you the information, but I think the point was that instead of teaching life lessons and being having creativity, you have to teach to a certain protocol, which is not useful in
In life, I gather
yeah,
that,
not
and I'm not disputing that part. What I'm disputing is that they are not giving the students even what's on the test. They not only
yeah,
are
I agree with that.
avoiding the life lessons, they are avoiding what's on the test, and this is
Right? Yeah.
purposeful. And so by about 15, I started teaching the students that didn't get to go to the schools that I went to, what was actually on the test, and those students started to thrive. They started to excel. They literally avoided, and what I found in tutoring was they avoided the particular things that were needed for the test. So that's why the children wasn't passing the exams. um So, and I'm saying this is a mother of three, one of which who went to Montessori, and this child is now a teacher herself, and she's seeing the inadequacies that are in the Board of Education, um, from New York to Atlanta. This is a it's an intentional failure on our children,
Right.
and we do have to do better. We may need to do it ourselves. I found while I was tutoring as a young person that, you know, academia did not cater to the way we learn, the way we understand, and I was able to, circumvent that by simply listening and being a person that was taught their way, but could also relate to the way we understand things. My daughter does the same, and she's getting her children to excel. It's only been about a month and a half in Atlanta, and the children are now able to read better. They're doing their math better. She's a math teacher now, but she went to St. John's University, summa cum laude, but she was a student of business, right? And but it just so happens that she cares enough to teach us the way we need to learn and to understand each child and the way that they learn, because there's no one size fits all. um Before I even got to a college, I was teaching the LSAT exam because I was taught to understand how exams work. They do not teach us how to do that. Normally, I was I and my sister were the exception. So I don't feel like we were smarter than anyone else. That my sister was tried to be grafted into NASA, Columbia University in the sixth grade, so forth. So and she's a Mensa, right? She's deceased now, but what I'm saying is that this is not by happenstance. We all have this in us, but we do have to understand that they are undereducating us purposely. So I just wanted to leave you guys with that. I'm sorry my voice is so raspy. I've had pneumonia last week. But I just wanted to say that if we love our people, we have to step in and we have to do the work. Thank you.
Oh yeah, love it. Love it, love it. Um, Anybody else want to contribute? Oh, Black Truth, come on, educate us.
In all fairness, I believe Miss Lisa Jack had her hand up before me, but I'll go right after her.
Okay, I don't see it. I don't see her on the stage. Lisa? Okay, Lisa, go ahead. I see you now. Lisa going once. Lisa going twice. Go ahead, Black Truth.
Got it. Well, I just wanted to mention when we talk about power, we should be referring to, especially when dealing with the so called dominant society, we should be thinking in terms of economics. So I'll ask the question to everyone who's listening today: how many of you had a required class for financial literacy? How many of you
None.
had a class for some kind of skills trade, like the black receipt mentioned, carpentry, something along those lines, plumbing, electrical work, all that kind of stuff. They've gutted these programs. And even if you do go into a trade, because I actually went to a school where I had a kind of a program where I could go into a skilled trade. When you get out, there are no jobs waiting for you. There are no businesses. So they've gutted the programs and they've gutted the economic base that we have to go to. So that's a part of the powerlessness that they are promoting with the schools. They take away anything that would be financially beneficial, and when you get out, you're met with a brick wall. And so I just wanted to point that out.
Oh yeah, love it. Love it. It's so true. It's so unfortunate, but
I just wanted to say that even though we do face all these things, that there is a reconstruction happening, and
totally.
I see us like because we're so strong, and we've always been able to persevere no matter what economic situation, no matter how things look, we always survive. And so I still see us surviving in the future. And also because even in Chicago right now, 40% of black children are not going, well, I'm not even going, okay, well, CPS, 70% is like black children that go to CPS, but over 40% are they not going to school. So it's not because these kids don't want to go to school, but it's like different things that's going on within the system that's preventing them from going to school. So I'm just it the, through the disparity, I'm seeing us make up for it and create our own schools and our own places, because if the children are not going to school, eventually our black educators and forward thinking people, we're going to create something. And I see that. So at the end of all of this, I do see hope, and I see us creating the things that we need and not relying on the system to do so, because it was a time where we didn't have to do that. Even with the Ritalin thing, that was a way to stunt the warrior class. Those are our warriors. All these people that was trying to tranquilize all, these are our warrior class. Our young black boys who so called can't stay still and all, that's our warrior class. So, and we know what they need. Like, just think, like, our ancestors, they try to depict us as just slaves. We was building. We was builders. We was out there in agriculture, you know and I see the light at the end of the tunnel. And this I feel like this next season is gonna we're gonna have the opportunity to have that next era. I see that next era, and I just want to say that.
Um, I'll follow back off that, and say that yes, things that what excuse me, jobs and whatnot that we see today probably won't ever exist because of automation and things of that nature. So yeah, we will have to create the jobs that we want to see, that we need, in order to help improve our quote unquote systems. Um, like myself, my story, like I said, I feel like with everything that I've seen, I think it's important that we all, again, just decide what would be best for our communities. We know the institutions aren't teaching our kids how to think for themselves. Unfortunately, I think I had less than 10 people who graduated from the high school I graduated from in Youngstown. Um, Now they allow people to walk, but their diploma holders were empty. All because maybe they couldn't pass maybe one part of the OGT. Um, and going back to people being stuck and whatnot, like I just remember going over geometry in my junior year that I remember learning when I was in middle school, when I attended all primary, like all white school. So to say that, I had to teach my peers geometry, basic geometry, and we were all juniors in high school. So it was unfortunate, but it was one of those things where I had to recognize that I was a little bit more advanced, but it was just up to me to put at, to look back at my peers and be like, hey, teamwork, right? Um, it's unfortunate, but that's what we're given. And we're constantly having to just do with a little in order and hope that we can do a lot. Um, and just, yeah, I don't know, just finding new ways and systems on how to complete things and do things. Everything has to change. I think for me, my specialization was in communication, and I took two classes in that the same thing kept coming up: intro communications and technology and communications. The job of the media isn't to give you the information in order for you to build a conscious decision. The job of the media is to tell you what you're supposed to think. And each time that thing would come up, I would look around the classroom and nobody would bat their eye. So, given that what we know, I think this is just the right, moving a step in the right direction where everybody is recognizing that our modes of communication has to change. Everything that we once thought would happen has to change. And Everything just has to change um, in order for us to get to where we want to see, or be the change that we want to see. But good night, everyone.
Okay, love it. Appreciate it, Savannah. Um, LS Elite.
Peace and blessings to the room. In the words of my our brother Neely Fuller Jr., I'm still learning. Um, as far as the schools is concerned, Professor A, you spoke on it. Trades, if you look at the history, they obviously took trades out of the school. Obviously, back in the 70s, 80s, you used to be able to graduate from high school with carpentry stuff, those type of jobs where you could just go get a job. Um, so at the end of the day, my biggest thing is being able to go back to the grassroots, being able to, because the mom and pop theory has always been black owned businesses. When they say black owned businesses, it's always been mom and pop stores, but they had gentrified that in the Harlem Renaissance, things of that nature. So my biggest thing is teaching us how to, when they don't give us a lane, create the lane. When they don't want us to be able to survive, teach them how to survive. And that only comes with knowledge of self and knowledge of where we're going to go future. History teach us where we're going to go to the future. And I land my plane there, sir.
Wonderful. Um, let's see who else we have. Men's. Let me bring men's up. What's on your mind, men's? Men's, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
What's on your mind, brother?
Hey man, there's a lot on my mind. I've been listening to y'all, man, and I was just relaxing. Um, and then of course 1201 hit, and I was like, well, I already had a contribution, but then I was thinking about today and what today what's significant about today in the black community, black American community. And y'all was having a conversation about um schools and powerlessness, and throughout the conversations I was hearing was like different things that are being done and how we are, different, I would say, um monuments or boundaries we've crossed throughout this experience in education. And today is December 4th, and as you know, on Ice Cold Tuesday, what transpired. Um,
Right.
yeah, so I look at a lot of things in school and education. To answer the question first, do schools teach FBA children powerlessness? Yes. Um, have have we have we recognized this a long time ago, and have we made different alterations to reduce the outcome of children going to our school, going to schools and being miseducated or being taught powerlessness? And that's also yes as well. Yes, we have made efforts. We have made um, I would say success. We have achieved success in education. I'm trying to say this carefully because I don't want to make it like all the work is done. There's so much more work to do, and I think that everything that we witness in history, including whether we talk about universities or we talk about even elementary school, we have to basically implant ourselves throughout the entire process of our children's cultivation and I would say education. We have to basically be a part of that and figure out a way how to be implanted in everything, while our jobs and regular life takes time out of our lives to be able to do so as adequately and efficiently as others have the convenience to do so, privilege. We have to basically figure out how to have more control and guidance within our education and what is being taught to our kids and how it's being taught to our kids, all the way down to the tone, to even all the way down to who is teaching our kids. And I think that's one of the significant things about like a lot of organizations that today, as some people demonize, is that we look at education and we say, is there a gift or is there a benefit in education? The answer is yes, but is there also a curse in education? And the answer is also yes. And that's the same.
As above, so below.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with our organizations and our efforts. We can't look at our history and say it's flawless unless we look at our history and we say, okay, as far as progress, and we've done everything we could possibly do at that point in time with the information and resources we had. Is our history flawless? Yes, it is flawless as far as the stuff that we had to experience is not something that we put on ourselves. It's flawless in the fact that there's no proof of concept or way that exists that is able to resolve the things that we've gone through, because the stuff that we've gone through is unique, distinct, and has never happened before to another group of people, let alone for this amount of time in this particular environment, a predominant white society. So when I look at like our organizations and I see the flaws, it's two sides to the coin. I see, okay, on one side, our organizations are putting us and are giving us access to people who look like us, who have better interests and serves and wants to serve us, the better interests of us and everything and so forth. But then it's the other side, even within our organizations, within our fraternities, within our facilities, within our institutions, all of it is the other side. And what we are constantly having a conversation is how to eliminate that other side without throwing out the flawless side. And that flawless side is progression, productivity, perseverance. So um lastly, so today is December 4th, December 4th, 1906, the first college fraternity was founded. And this was a black American, 100% black American based fraternity all the way up to 1945. And obviously y'all can figure out why it became interracial. But this was, our organizations are legacy. Our legacy organizations are 99.9% Black American, 99.99% of the time. In our legacy organizations. When I say legacy organizations, I'm talking about fraternities. I'm talking about our organizations outside of college. I'm talking about some of the institutions. And what has been happening now is that they've been stemming from the origin of their purpose because of infiltration and so forth. So now we're like in a whole different complex battle with not just white people, ever since Brown versus Board of Education, but even with other people who don't, who look like us, who are not us, who don't even have the knowledge to represent what the organizations that we have founded are for, let alone do they have the courage or backbone to stand the ground for what is necessary for the Black American community within these organizations. So that's what happens. Organization becomes weak when weak people join, and weak people don't stand on what they were founded for, and that's even all the way into education. And the way we tie this in education is because Brown, ever since Brown versus Board of Education, there was integration of schools and so forth, right? And with integration of schools, our information, the way we were more compatible with one another in our environments was stripped slowly, incrementally, but ultimately, finally, it was stripped completely, gutted, and now we have black teachers that fall under very high level of scrutiny and observation by white counterparts in a white education system, in a white curriculum. And we cannot expect any of us to demolish this unless we match what they have already formed, what they've organized. It wasn't individuals that established these things. These were organizations. These were bodies of people that basically got the entire country to flip and do things the way they in the direction they wanted to go. And that's where we're at in the organization phase. In order for us to compete and take our education back, control our schools, or control what's being taught to our kids, we have to basically take our own establishments, and if not take over the establishments that already exist, we have to form an establishment or ingrade or ingrain or implant some way an establishment that can function, that can coexist, which is what we've been doing really, and that's why it's so hard for us because we've been mastering how to coexist, our educational systems, our societies, and everything else amongst turmoil and chaos and corruption. And now we're trying to figure out how to safekeep it. Like that's, and some people don't see it that way because we think it's just down level to like one specific area. We're trying to gatekeep like entertainment. No, we're actually we're establishing how to gatekeep across the board and protect what is ours to better act, to better serve and address our children and our youth. Because that's what's really all about, our children, and safeguard and what they're doing. They're conflating Black history with other terms. They're using CRT. They're basically slowly, incrementally trying to chip away even our ability to do that by completely eliminating and eradicating anything that can ingrain something into a child that gives them a seed to want to flourish, to want to be more, want to be better, knowing that they were better and they had better. They don't want the child to have that vision. They don't want the child to see a world where they perfectly fit in. They want the child to believe that they're in a world where they don't fit in, there's no place for them, and that even if they had the skill set, they wouldn't be accepted. And that's why I say schools does teach powerlessness. They don't look, if you went to a school and they didn't have to say nothing to you and it was on online material, the presence of the faculty would be teaching FBA children powerlessness. If your child is in a school with a principal, with in a community where the superintendent, the government and everything's all white, the teachers are white, the material itself is centered on whiteness and white lens. Everything, even when they try to teach about race, it's from a freaking white lens, man. If they try to teach you about race and racism from a white historian standpoint or from a white observation observer, you're getting fooled. Like how that's racism in itself. That's the racism, not the material, the act. That's what racism is, the act of that particularly happening. So yes, schools do teach children powerlessness, and it still does, and it's only us that we ingrain, we embed these different conversations and material, within our children, and we pass it on. Like, a lot of us only learned about Martin Luther King in school. When I was growing up, Martin Luther King was the only person they taught you, and that we were slaves. You know what I'm saying? But then you come across other things that have been embedded in society, like your counterparts, your coach, other Black Americans that are able to sprinkle things in, through after school programs, which is where they're able to sprinkle truth and real history through the occurrence of you engaging in an educational environment. Otherwise, you would not have access to either. So it's two sides to it. Um, I can't be too much of a critic and like really be a defeated, sound like a defeatist and be like, oh, we're all fucked, and because I don't believe that. I think that it's a constant challenge, and I think that a lot of us do get exhausted when we see how much more there is to do after no matter what step forward we take, you see there's 1,000 more steps left. And if you open your eyes too much, it becomes overwhelming. But it's not done, and we recognize that our schools teach our children powerless. And that's why when our kids come home, we're supposed to ask them, what have you learned in school, and what did you do in school? You know what I'm saying? What were you told? What was said? And did you have any issues? Or, you're supposed to be knowing your curriculum, knowing the material. You are the real professor of your child. You are the best professor for your child. The parent, no matter how much education you have. So that's what I wanted to leave with, man. I've been listening for a long time. I was gonna call it today, man, but then of course I know how you are you know with that Greek, that Greek life, and how you sometimes be making some funny jokes. So I was like, let me come up here and just throw that out there. What today is, it's a lot of work to be done, and let me leave it at that before I start putting out some other stuff that may come off as nothing burgers. Thank you.
Ronnie.
Oh, let's see. Mr. X, go ahead, Mr. X, and then we'll give Mikhail last words.
Peace, peace. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, brother.
Okay, yes, sir. So, just to answer the question, brother, I do, I do feel like they teach our children powerlessness. They don't come out right and say it, but through the things that they teach them, or through the things that they don't teach them as well, um, they're psychologically, they're subconsciously suggesting to them that basically they were nothing more than slaves, and they only teach them the great things that white people have done, but they don't teach them a thorough knowledge of self, about them being the original man. I know for a fact when I first uh, gained a knowledge of self, and just what that did for me and my self-esteem. You know what I'm saying? If you can talk to a child and explain to him that he was the original man on earth, and that God made man in his image, then what does that mean God looks like? If the first man on earth looks like you, and he made the first man in his image. You know, when he learns that, hey, we actually taught civilization to the Europeans. If he actually learns about all of the great things that his people have done, then it won't be far fetched. You know what I'm saying? If he doesn't, if the only thing he sees is a certain portrayal of a black man that he is fed in the media, um, basically the gist of what I'm saying is, if he does disband the Department of Education, we have the it now gives us the excuse to take uh, our education back, or educate our children ourselves, and I feel like that's a more of a benefit than a downfall, because we actually get to teach our children a true knowledge of self, and not a colonized, give them a watered down colonized education, so that they can be subjugated in this system. And I'll just leave it at that.
Is anybody saying anything?
Oh no, nobody's. Mikhail, go ahead.
Greetings, great Professor Queen Wani. Um, I think um, the great one, No Taxation, and the Queen, Lisa Jack, may have been ahead of me, so I'm curious to hear what they have to say, so I can wait. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Mikhail, you're new to the stage. I was going, if you want, I was going to let you go. But um, no taxation. Do you have something to contribute? I didn't see a hand.
Mm-mm. No, I didn't have anything.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Mikhail. She already spoke.
And our sister Lisa Black, or Jackson.
Yes, yes, sir. She spoke already.
Okay, okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak there, brother, and thank you to the great ones of the great black ones. And I'm honored to be here amongst the oracles. By the way, Professor, look in your DM. I left something there for you. Yeah, brother.
Right on. Appreciate it, man. I'm looking now.
So, do schools teach FBA children powerlessness? Well, why wouldn't they?
Huh. Good
We,
point.
right, our children are different, strange, mostly what we would categorize as the indigo children or the star children. We have different processors, and we receive information vastly different. We have an overly developed limbic system and a very powerful brain inside of our heart that allows us to hear from the heart first, to learn from the heart first, and then process it within the software or the hardware inside of our heads. You know, I remember one day, my son, he walked up to me, looking at me very suspiciously, and he said, "Dad, I think you know something that I don't know." Boom. And I began to teach him the things that our ancestors, hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of years ago, knew, because I understood my DNA. I see it in my cousins, see it in my nephews, and they're all abnormally brilliant, you see. And when you see that their curiosity is taking them into these different directions, this quest to know, that's the time to really begin to hone them in on what I call source knowledge. Preferably if you can catch them sort of even at the age of 3, that would be better. We're experiencing a paradigm shift.
Totally.
And it leans towards us because it brings us back into a reconnection of source. Everything becomes source. And the narratives are different. The ideologies are different. And so it's up to us to develop a new generation of thinkers and creators that exist outside these curriculums. We have to encourage our youth and teach them to think in innovative and multi-dimensional ways. Science, technology, engineering, maths, economics, STEM E is key, but we have to go beyond that. One of the things I focus on, and we're creating curriculum and developing a paradigm plan or building plan, is something we call quantum monumentality, and which is key. And that quantum monumentality essentially focuses on what was taught to these our so-called lightborns, and this is what our children, what they represent. And it involves transitioning outside of the pre-existing matrix and existing in a state of non-existence, right? In science, they may call it ontology and metaphysics and so on and so forth. But the state of non-existence, which I'm speaking of, is a clean slate that doesn't involve the matrix or this outdated matrix in which we live in, stripped of any form of negative energies and nihilism, but allows for the cultivation of new, untested ideals and perspectives. Right? This path, this journey towards the state of non-existence, involves use of discipline, scientific experimentation, formalities, and et cetera, that you're not going to find in these universities in which we send our youth to. Why? Because the curriculums and the people who create those curriculums, they're not spawned from that place of lightborns. You understand? How can they teach something that they can't even theorize about? So this new way of thinking is key. And some of it might be based on ideals of quantum mechanics and et cetera, but it's very different. So, we have to realize that we have very, very special kids. And in the state of quantum monumentality, you teach them how to focus on the smallest atomistic components of the world, right? This allows them to think atomistically and create a more holistic and integrated view of not just the society, but the universe. This allows them to identify and address the root causes of various social, economic, and environmental problems. This allows them to go right to the source. Everything has a source. Everything has an origin story, right? So this takes them back to a place before this matrix that we live in was constructed. So that's very key to getting them to operate in what I call a quantum state of lightwardness, not forwardness, not backwardness, not upwardness, not downwardness, but lightwardness, you see. And that concept of quantum monumentality emphasizes the importance of individual atoms coming together to form a greater whole, and the creation of this state of lightwardness. We were able to time travel and do things that the albinoids, or who I call the walking dead, can't do. And at this point can't understand. And we can't understand it, but we can feel it. And then once they master this ideology of quantum monumentality, you have to teach them the ideology of megalithic monumentality, how to think on the scale of the universe or the multiverse, et cetera, and give them a sense of scale that doesn't exist within our societies today. So it's just certain things that, we have to give our youth that that were taught to our masters, our savants, to allow us to operate effectively within this next paradigm. You should definitely have them focus on space colonization or even space technology, and you'll see how well they do. And I mean, study, make heroes of this Foundation of Freedmen, astronauts. We have many of them. To think beyond the matrix is very, very, very important. And I'll end with this. The most important thing, and it's something I'm struggling with, is how to identify these young childs or star children, organize them into locations or geniuses, and give them this type of curriculum that will allow them to be leaders in this new paradigm shift. So I'll land with that. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, family. Love you all. Keep that mighty jab in their face. You are the cultural superpower of the planet. Thank you.
Professor A.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. Yeah. I kind of, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Um, I kind of like,
You
zoned
drifted
out for
off.
a second.
You drifted off.
Yeah, I tripped. Yeah. I, kind of dozed off for a second, but yeah, um, I uh, I agree with what you were saying. And this is very interesting. I think that I like the point that Mikhail brought up earlier about our students. Why wouldn't the system program our students? I like the fact that he brought up the point that our children are different. Our children are absolutely brilliant. I remember one year I was teaching. I was doing student teaching. It's a long time ago in West End, Alabama, and just the concepts that our children bring up. You don't see. Um, I would argue that you rarely see in other groups. You see creativity coming from a source, from an original source. So it's very fascinating. Um, Wani, who was next? Oh, Andre. Long time. Mikhail, were you finished? Oh, okay, he dropped down. Okay, Andre, what's on your mind?
I think Lisa was next.
Lisa, go ahead, Lisa.
I feel like the app is glitching. Cause
Yeah, something's going a little weird right now. Um, we're not gonna stay afloat much longer. But I'm gonna try to get the speakers that were speaking. Lisa, what's on your mind? Can you hear me? Lisa going once. Lisa going twice. All right. Andre, what's on your mind? Can you hear me, Andre?
Yeah, I can hear you. Was Lisa gonna go?
She didn't hear me. She didn't go.
Oh,
Go ahead.
all right. I recognize some ops, some agents in the building. Just to keep it a buck for your
Roger that.
professor. And
We're,
your
we're,
sake, Monty.
we're gonna.
Yeah, real rap. And Monty may not recognize me from being in these spaces summers ago, from the first summer up until now, and so I recognize some of the ops from early on, anti FBA, and I
Well,
don't
it's not gonna matter. We're not gonna stay
even.
afloat much longer.
What's up?
It's not really gonna matter because I'm gonna shut the space down in a
Good,
moment. I'm gonna
good.
get your.
Yeah, I'm here, but
Apologize
I'm
for that.
sorry. I'm here. I'm here. I'll shut it down, but I'm here.
Okay, Lisa. Go ahead quickly, Andre.
All right, yeah. So to address the title, the schools teach FBA children powerlessness. Welsing on education. Yeah, Welsing was an inspiration. She definitely opened up. She was very inspirational to me when I was in university, and it made me confident. I have resolve in answering the question, or and asking the question about race. And I was armed with her with Welsing's theory of uh, what is it? Racial white genetic annihilation.
It's
Yeah.
it's called color
Color
confrontation.
confrontation. Well, she had several theories that she had developed, but yeah, that's what
Right.
I was a fan of all of them. But just in terms of the work, the scholarly work, it was it was something that she was proposing that was theoretical, right? And she was aiming to provide substantive you know proof to to back up her claims and all that. So with all of that to say, when it comes to the schools, a lot of that has to do with um, what's good for business, right? And they're getting a whole bunch of immigrants, and they're doing a whole bunch of things and revamping the history, teaching them whatever they got to teach them um, to get them to continue to consume and to work um, harder and harder for a paycheck that buys less and less of the shit that they're selling for more and more. The same class of people. So they're teaching above all else to be obedient and to not really question how the sausage is made, how the money is getting generated and distributed. That's really a big part of the schools right now. I noticed it because I went through the ringer all the way up to grad school, and even in my professional career as a social worker, it is part of it. It, the end result is a bunch of people who are uncritical, and they don't have any ounce of fight that they could muster up to have smoke for their boss or their landlord or the 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 fucking banks or anybody after them, the the government, you know all of that shit is they're getting no smoke, but we're fighting everybody else, and they're getting the kids as the number one. um they're big on the kids. They love kids. This elite class, they love to get him, and they have the public schools are one thing, but even that is like all of the social investment is getting withdrawn. And whether it's Biden or Trump, the whole trend is going down. In the United States, is they're talking about, yeah, because having Trump in the second term, it's even more in your face how how much they're gonna yank Social Security and yank these pensions and the health care and all of the social spending, all of that stuff is gone. The Americans are going to suffer. So we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do for our kids, for our housing, for our schools. But really, we're going to have to figure out some of the basics. I was just looking at the Maslow, what is it? The hierarchy of needs, and I'm a housing specialist. I'm a realtor. I focus on the housing part of it. But the United States is coming towards that time. The dollar is not doing what it was doing around the world, and the United States' wars aren't going the way they want them to. They're not winning Ukraine. They're not winning Gaza. They're not winning any of this shit. They didn't win Afghanistan. They didn't win Iraq. They didn't win none of this shit. Not even all the way going back to Vietnam. we've been downward, and now we're at a turning point where we're gonna have to choose. Are we gonna let this shit continue to rock? Because they're gonna run it into the ground. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have a winning strategy, and the world is turning on it. They're saying the BRICS, they're saying
I
China.
hate I hate to cut you short,
So
Andre. I
our
appreciate
kids
your
are in
submission.
danger. Yeah, we gotta take the country back. Working
Yep.
people, average people, poor and working class people.
Well, Andre, we're gonna move on. I appreciate your submission.
Thank
Go
you.
go ahead, Lisa.
Well, honestly, all I want to say is when you want to talk about Francis Cress Wesleyan, I had the opportunity to teach my daughter at home because what they tried to do in public school was tell me that my daughter needed to go all the way over to the other side of where I was living because she had special ed needs. I said, no, my daughter doesn't. So what I did was I taught her at home. Now my daughter has 2 degrees in their face. So my thing is like, I think sometimes, when they try to tell you that your kids got certain things or whatever, and you got to send them back into that gory place, sometimes sit down and teach your children yourself. I found out how my daughter likes to learn. She likes to learn through music. She know more old music than we do. Trust me, she do. And what I did, that's how I taught her. And what she did was she turned around, she gave me 2 degrees. Now, are they worth anything to me? Yeah, not at all. One is undergraduate psychology. Um, it's business, and two is business. One is undergraduate psychology. And do they mean anything? Not at all, because she don't use them. Neither one, nothing. So that just goes to tell you what this, really where this country is kind of heading, because these people are trying to make lanes for themselves. I think a lot of the youngsters really don't want college anymore. They're really trying to open up lanes for themselves. Give them reading, writing, arithmetic. Just give them the basics, and they'll take it from there. That's all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
And yeah, and that's very true. I see that with my student body, and I don't blame them. Like, what does college make sense? And some of my most successful students join the military, join public service. Does college make sense? The older I get, the more this is kind of controversial for me to say, but I don't think so. I think that with the student rate of the rate of student loans, it doesn't make sense. I don't know. Let me think on that. I might have a space on that one because it's touchy. I'll get a couple more people. Um, I think Tyrone. I don't know you, Tyrone, but we'll try this. What's on your mind, Tyrone? Tyrone going once. Tyrone going twice.
Hold on.
Tyrone, can you
Yo,
hear me?
yo, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, what's your submission?
Hey, man. I just wanted to touch on the topic: do schools teach FBA children powerlessness? Yeah, man. Shoot, they giving us milk. You know what I'm saying? Well, when I was in school, they was giving us milk. But I do want to say, like you mentioned earlier, they don't really teach us psychology. And when I started to study psychology, it strengthened me, and it made me realize some of the spells we were under, or like the programming that we were under. Um, Psychology teaches when people try to guilt trip you, shame you in certain things, and these things I feel like we should be equipped with to know how to read micro expressions and behavior and language. I mean, it's just very important. And another thing I wanted to talk about was one of the brothers had said that he was on the phone. Another thing that empowered me was knowledge of self. Learning about like supreme mathematics for me, understanding that the black man is a god. It's I know it sounds egotistical. I know it could sound a little narcissistic, but to know that nature is on your side, everything is on your side, is really a strong mindset to have. And it was one of the foundational elements to hip hop. Most of the, I'll say, like Rakim and KRS One and so on, a couple of other brothers too. I know they were very familiar with the teachings, And that 5% nation knowledge, I think is definitely needed as well. I'm not saying it applies for everybody. Not everybody is going to fully even agree with it, which is completely understandable. But I definitely think that it's needed, and definitely teaching psychology is needed. And I'm pretty sure we could go down a list of shoot how school is not beneficial. You pretty much hit it on the head. So that's all I got to say. I land my helicopter there.
Appreciate your submission, brother. We're gonna go with let's see, social media as a defense. We'll have to shut this space down shortly. Social media defense. What's on your mind?
I have a business and we track algorithms on the back ends of social media platforms, and the discrimination is crazy across all groups.
Hold on one second. I lost you. What do you mean by discrimination? The topic is
So
what do you
yeah,
mean?
so as far as helplessness goes, AI uses every attribute on the back end of social media platforms. I don't want to list names of platforms for legal reasons, but for the last 2 decades, they've been sequencing children's emotions to degrees where mathematically it inhibits children from engaging critical thinking. And they've targeted all kinds of groups, but it's really tragic. And we're at a point where just the programmed. I have 2 links on my profile if anyone's interested. One's to my parenting resources on Amazon, but there's another one with 8 free handbooks that go over how they're free downloads, how platforms basically program helplessness, and they psychologically prompt users and children through their social media feed to relinquish their locus of control over their own life. And to me, this is just atrocious, and it's psychological abuse. There are algorithms that condition and reward certain functions or prompt certain emotions and behaviors that they
So I'm gonna
subsequently punish you
stop.
for.
I'm gonna stop you right
Yeah.
there. She said conditioned reward and punishment. That's earlier in the jumbotron. You see a mouse.
Yeah.
That's B.F. Skinner.
Oh, yes.
Remember I was telling y'all how Skinner was used to attack the community. That's what she's talking about. She said rewards and she didn't say punishments, but
Yeah,
yeah, this is
both.
deep.
Oh,
And
yeah. It's sick.
So,
but
so
go
they're
ahead,
playing with your
land your plane.
dopamine.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
100%.
it's deep. It's programming. Like it's psycho. And we did a study on this with when I was at university with pornography. Like pornography is there's studies that's showing that the pornography on the internet is lowering numbers of children being born because of
Well,
it's
I don't want to cut you
yeah.
off,
Go
but
ahead.
that's another thing. I have pretty controversial stuff, but they punish. So on social media platforms, when children are filtered shows of desirability towards the opposite sex, they're subsequently psychologically punished, and so girls are programmed on and emotionally abused on social media to be embarrassed of being attracted to the opposite sex, and so they become programmed to like hide desirability, and then vice versa for our boys. I do have and they abuse them to the point where they shift their desirability towards the opposite sex. I don't want to get into that, but and it's mathematically quantifiable, and it's just sick, the way they're
Yes, deep.
targeting our children.
It's real deep. Yeah. Thank you for that submission. What's social media defense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I really like what she said about how they put psychology into algorithm. This shit is dangerous. It's dangerous. What we're looking at is a form of social control, um, which has been perfected at certain universities that I'm not going to mention. But I'm gonna leave it right there. Anybody else want to submit? I really enjoyed this space. It got glitchy for a minute, but I really enjoyed this. Savannah, you want to have closing
That was my
remarks?
way of saying good night. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, without further ado, Awani, did you have any closing remarks? Awani fell asleep.
Oh, good night.
Okay, yeah. All right. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace out.